Good evening. It is 5:15 this Wednesday, February 2nd. The City Council meeting budget work session is now in session. Would you please rise and join me with Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, all are in attendance. Tonight's agenda is rather simple. It's a budget work session, and we are going to begin with outside agencies, and I believe new opportunities is up first. Hello and welcome.
Hello. I'm Mary Graving from New Opportunities, and I am the LIHEAP Supervisor and Family Development Center Coordinator for the counties that we serve. There are the flyer. You want to hand those out in the brochures?
Let me grab this.
So the Faces flyer that we are going to hand out, it gives us a snapshot of all the services that New Opportunities handles in all the 7 counties. And the funds from the city support the programs for treatment and prevention to help us continue to do what we do with those programs. And any other further questions on the treatment and prevention services, we can get back to you with the director. And then also, Roanna and I are representing the Family Development Center of New Opportunities for Carroll County. We're currently at a temporary location not far from here, 804 North Main. We had a fire to our building in October of last year. So we're hoping to get back to our main building by the end of the year. And then with the funds from the city help support the Family Development Center and its operation as well. We get federal, state, local, city, and donations, regular donations, and we're thankful that the city can help support the program because we rely heavily on donations. The Family Development Center has served 1,016 unduplicated individuals in 2021, and that's just our portion, the Family Development Center, towards the bottom of the flyer that you have, comprised of 481 households. One of the main programs that our department does is the LIHEAP program. It's the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. One-time payment towards their heat bill. So families reach out if they're struggling with heat, electric, deliverable fuel, lots of different things. We're able to enter all that information into one database, which is how we track all of our services, including food pantry, referrals, clothing, lots of other services. And that's how we get solid numbers on who we're serving. We also can get demographics of families that are working, families that are at risk of poverty or risk of homelessness and all those different things. And we really can, because we track the date of birth and social security number for the household members, so they can't be in more than one household. So we get all that information. They only have to reach out and bring us income one time, and we can serve them because we know their poverty level and connect them to services in-house as well as out in the community. So one of the newer programs is the Low Income Household Water Program. It's a federal program that we administer. If someone has already been in to use our LIHEAP service, they don't need to bring anything else. They can just simply give us a call. We network with the city. The city of Carroll is a participating vendor, so we can assist families with water, sewer, and some of those other charges on their water bill. And that is, the payment goes directly to the city for the families. It does not go to the families to pay the bill. And then also Brianne does the Carroll County. Did you want to talk about that?
So I am the Carroll County Family Development Center Coordinator here for Carroll. My name is Ryan Coffrin. And take care of the Carroll County General Relief Funding as well. So when a client comes to me, first and foremost, we look at their situation, and then we give them any kind of utility assistance, either the water, electric, or heat that they may need at the time. Obviously, if there's more needs with housing, whatnot, we have some great partnerships with other area businesses. and organizations that help with that. On a regular day, I would say majority of people come in. We do a lot of the utilities. And then with our other programming, we have like financial literacy, so we help them get back on their feet. We do the clothing closet, so they get clothes. We have the food pantry there, so they get food. And the majority of our clients are like fixed income, where they just don't quite have enough for their needs to meet their basic needs. One of our current needs right now, we're doing a lot with, obviously with the cold weather, with coats and gloves. And then I just wanted to mention on a good feel-good note, an example is the Carroll school I called. There was a 5th grade girl that was getting teased because she wasn't bathing. So they reached out to us. The family was able to come in. We found out their water was shut off. We were able to give them utilities, clothing. They came back in. We helped them at Christmas. So there was multiple things we were able to do for the family. So it was a really great feeling. So, any questions?
And it noted that your request is in the amount of $10,920, which is the same as last year.
Correct.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, too. Okay, next on our list is the Carroll Area Child Care Center. Hello, one and all. Well, there's strength in numbers. That's how we feel up here.
You're less intimidating.
Yeah.
Well, good evening. My name is Keely Farah, and I'm the Executive Director of the Carroll Area Child Care Center and Preschool. This is my on-site director, Lexi Flug, board member, Trisha Christensen, and board president, Jackie Mertez. And yeah, I'm so glad that they're here standing with me today. As this is my first time here, I'm new in this role as of late last year. So this has been something that's super exciting and new to me. So with that being said, we're looking ahead to making many more changes and just kind of keeping it rolling, refreshing, and just continuing to improve our quality of childcare. That's always been our mission, and that remains. So when I don't know how many of you know about our center that's located right over here, but we've been around for a long time, so 1975. So while I can't give you a lot of details about the center then, what I can say is when I think about like 1975, I'm just like so proud that we've been able to continue to maintain and be available to the community and all of the parents for so many years. It's definitely one of the favorite parts of my job, being able to provide safe, comfortable, quality care for so many families, approximately 100 to give you an estimate, and about 156 children is currently enrolled. We are fully, our full capacity is 168. There are a few vacancies because of COVID and lesser infants when COVID first started. But anyways, the priority has always been to make the parents and the children feel safe. So while they can report to work and in turn, provide quality essential services to the city of Carroll. So in doing some math and making notes in preparation for this meeting, we determined that there are 72 individuals that work for the city of Carroll. So with that being said, that's a lot of important essential work that those individuals are doing every day when they drop off their children. We're available for everyone Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. completely, like 100% reliability. We are always open. It is very rare that we have emergency closures due to weather, which typically involves like a 1 to 2 hour closing just to get our staff and our families home safe. I never want to be able to have to say that we can't provide care. And with us being state licensed, we follow so many guidelines based on the Iowa Department of Human Services. One that is so important and sits with us daily is the staff to child ratio. So for example, the younger the child, the more staff it takes to care for that age group. So like 1 to 4 for infants until they're age 2. And then it goes greater with age 2. You've got You can have 6, and then you can have 8 with the 3-year-olds, and then you can have 12 and 15. That's something that we can never short. We would never break a licensing violation to continue care. We would close. So that's why our jobs are so important in recruiting these staff. So our individuals that we employ are when we hire them, there's mandatory trainings that they need to take. But we can hire a 16-year-old and she can't be left alone until she's 18, or we can hire anyone and they might have a high school diploma, but that might be all that they have. So it's our job to teach them, train them, provide trainings for them, and making sure they're comfortable and confident in the care that they're providing. So one of our biggest jobs we spend most of our day doing is empowering, supporting, recruiting, maintaining our staff. And it's very hard because we aren't able to offer them a very livable wage. So most of our full-time employees are between $9 and $11 an hour. So it's very hard. We meet a lot of great people who would be great candidates for the role, but we are often turned down when it comes time to make that offer to be a part of our team. So something that we've been doing that we know is really helping is providing these trainings for them. It makes them feel empowered and included. And I think the more comfortable they become in their step as a childcare provider, they realize how essential they are, and it really boosts them. And then they stay with us. Turnover is it's very common right now anyways, but it's something that we've always struggled with. I truly see a difference. Recently we were able to increase our starting pay from maybe $8 or a little bit less to more of the $9, $10 range. So that's all very new. And I've already noticed a positive trend in retaining our good quality staff. I know that that's our number one priority, and keeping our doors open are our staff. So it remains our priority. And that is what, when we're requesting our $17,000, that is definitely where it will go. It will go towards increasing our employees' wages. In order to, keep meeting, our motto, our mission statement, to keep it the best childcare or quality care, we have to have consistent, reliable staff that show up.
Just one thing I want to add that's going to bounce off of what Keely said, but the children that are provided for in our center, it's not just the City of Carroll employees. We provide care for over 100 Carroll County businesses, for people who work at over 100 Carroll County businesses. So if they weren't able to have their child care, they aren't going to work. And you can see the trickle down effect there. So it's very important for us to have the staff there so that we can have these children cared for, so these individuals can continue to go to work, because we all know we need that these days. So.
How many full-time employees do you have?
At this time, we have 33.
Full-time employees.
Yeah,
Can you give how many part-time you have?
only 3 at this time. They're our high school staff, and they come in the afternoons after school.
Okay. The other thing is you're asking for 17,000, which is the same as last year.
Yes.
How many years previous? What was the numbers before that?
I do not have that documentation with me.
I think it's been consistent around 17,000 for the last several years, as far as I know.
Laura, you looking it up?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. So it increased from 14,000 in fiscal 17 to 17,000 in fiscal 18.
Okay.
So it's been at 17. This 22 budget's the 5th year.
So 5th year.
So
Well, that's my concern is cost of living, and you're not keeping up with it with asking for the same. I worry about that for the same reasons you just said, is if we don't have you around town, we lose employees, possibly in jobs. So I'm worried, we'll go with 17 this year, but I worry about your future staying on that amount with the cost of living going up.
Yes, absolutely. And we're lucky enough to receive money, from Carroll County United Way. And we do annual fundraisers, and we have some donors that participate too. But yeah, that's a good point.
There's still no state aid directly, is there?
No, not at this time.
So just funded by those governments
Yes,
plus,
there are grant
plus your
opportunities
due,
that we
yeah,
pursue.
just the fees and dues and everything. So,
Yes.
And throughout COVID, there has been money available to all of the centers and childcare homes in the state of Iowa, but we don't know how long that's gonna last.
well, God bless you. I don't know, I know what you're up. I served 8 years with you guys, and seems like almost 100 years ago. But I became very familiar with the center and the staff, and I've been meaning to get by there. I drive by there all the time, and I've been meaning to get by there. And it's been a little hectic the last 60 days, but I intend to do so and pop my head in. But I won't be responsible for any 3-year-olds. That's where I draw the
You
line.
have it
So.
right, and you can
Yes.
say 2-year-olds, but it's our
Okay.
3-year-olds. Yeah, but yeah, you
Yeah.
are welcome
Yeah,
anytime.
we want to
Glad
maintain it a quality center. So,
Oh,
any other questions that you guys have?
Just curious if you guys have any other special projects going on. I mean, obviously my kids used to go there as
Yeah.
well, and I watched throughout the years of, the playground and whatnot. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Right now, I'm kind of following the lead of my staff, and a lot of the things that need replaced are larger, like outdoor play climbers. That obviously, with the number of children involved, it's heavy trafficked area, so it does need replaced, and it's mostly for safety issues. So it's always essential when we need it. So really, just the upkeep of it's general upkeep of the building. Like our list of center repairs is so long.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yeah, great seeing you.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, next on the outside agencies, we have the community concern and the food pantry. Hi, Rox.
Good evening. My name is Roxanne Reinhardt. Can you guys hear me? I always get accused of having a quiet voice unless I'm mad, I guess. But I am the director of the Community of Concern, and we just celebrated 40 years in Carroll this last year in 21. And we are asking for assistance with our rent. In 2021, we've helped 812 families with 2,097 people. And the Community of Concern is a food pantry that serves Carroll County residents. We will not turn anyone away for food if they are homeless. If someone comes to our door with, we require a photo ID and proof of residency, which is a bill or a letter that puts them in Carroll County that is current. If someone comes to our door and they don't have that, we're not going to say, you know what, you're not going to eat tonight. We're going to give them what we call an emergency pack, because if they tell us they're living in a car or they don't have a place to stay, people still need to eat. So we're going to give them a couple bags of food, like with peanut butter, bread, canned tuna, maybe a can of soup, something that you're going to eat in your car or cold. And our pantry gets donations from the stores Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It kind of alternates. So we use a lot of the vegetables they're about ready to pull off their shelves. And if we can't use it, we do call the group homes and stuff in town so it doesn't get thrown away. So we try to recycle stuff out and let everybody get a chance to use that. And there's just a lot to tell. So if you guys have any questions, please interrupt and ask. But the pantry is an emergency pantry. We're not income-based, we're need-based. So it's not a monthly program where people can say, can I call or can I come in? Is my month up? We kind of do an interview when people call, and we want to know what the reason for their needs are. And we'll ask questions, and then we're a referral program, because if there is a monthly program you're qualify for, we want to tell them what that program is so they can qualify for that monthly program. And realizing that there are going to be people that can never change their status, that are always going to need help. Like if you're on a fixed income, groceries are getting high right now. So they may always need our help, but there are people that may need a referral to the unemployment office or to food stamp program or to the LIHEAP program or to the WIC program or different programs that will also assist them so they can free up their own money to buy groceries. And then our groceries consist of about a $400 to a $450 value. And it could be more by now because groceries have gone up, but generally they get one grocery cart full of canned foods, boxed foods, frozen foods. And then another grocery cart has kind of like the bakeries and the vegetables and pop and stuff like that. So they're getting a lot of food. There's no limit as to how many times people can come. If you're sick, your emergency might take longer to get out of that hump than if you just maybe have a higher gas bill or a heat bill 1 month. So we just kind of, each individual is different. We also have the extra effort program that we can help people with. It's kind of intended for like, maybe if somebody would need a wheelchair ramp put on their house, or somebody can't afford like a toilet seat riser, something that other programs can't pay for or can't provide for. But do you guys have any questions for me? I just feel like there's a lot that I could sit here and talk about. There's just such a wide variety of things. And we get money from the United Way if we are accepted, the county, the city, and we have a small volunteer contract. Otherwise, everything we get is donations. We have no federal money coming in or anything, and otherwise we survive on donations. So we do appreciate all the support that you guys have given us in the past. We wouldn't be here without everybody that donates.
Any questions for Roxanne? No, it was very thorough.
And we do open up after hours for people that are working because we don't want to put them further behind if they do need assistance. And a couple of the people have our number that we can help after hours if needed. So, and if anybody wants a tour, we'd be happy to open up and give one.
Very good. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd like to just point out to the council, especially for the newer members, you'll notice that in fiscal year 2021, they had a large increase. That was actually a COVID-19 grant received from the state of Iowa with community development block grant dollars. And that was the restaurant gift card program. We partnered with both the food pantry and new opportunities for that program. And so that was just pass through dollars. And since their portion showed up in their budget, so that's why that jumped for 1 year.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, moving on, we have the Historical Preservation Commission. Hi, Vicki, again. Welcome.
I'm Vicki Gatch. I'm the chair of the Carroll Historic Preservation Commission. And our focus for the last several years and this year has been the cemetery. It was designed by a city engineer in Carroll and constructed by the WPA workers, a lot of it in the middle part especially. But the museum building and the restroom building are in particular have historic significance and contemporary utility. In 2017, the Historic Preservation Commission repurposed the 1935 maintenance building and turned it into a museum. We furnished it, we cleaned it first and then furnished it, and then we cement caulked the rocks, which were starting to come loose in the walls. Carroll citizens and the Carroll County Historical Society donated items that are in the museum, and it's open. You can go anytime to go in there. It does have a timed lock on it, but the code is posted there, so it's very easy to get into. Clay Haley donated new cement benches that are in the front of and on the side of the building. And last fall, the cemetery workers sealed the gaps under the roof where the bats were getting in. The bathroom building, which is from the same era and is also historic, it needs work, especially it needs new shingles and it needs renovation on the inside. It's frequently used by cemetery walkers and cemetery workers. Also, people who come to funerals and funeral directors have said that they would like to see some updating on that. It was amazing when we were working there how many people actually were coming by and using that. Our current project, which is almost to the end zone, has been the National Register nomination for the cemetery. It's 150 years old this year since it was platted. And 2 years ago this month, the Historic Preservation Commission submitted an Iowa site survey or inventory. We started working on that in February. We submitted it in October. They okayed it in December, and they said that it looked like the cemetery could qualify for the National Register of Historic Places. So we started 6 major steps. Carolyn and I started working in December. I don't know how many hours we put in on it, but we could have hired a consultant for between $15,000 and $17,000, which some places do, to get on the National Register. But we figured we could handle it, so we did. There were 6 major steps and a lot of deadlines in there, multiple drafts. On October 8th, we met by Zoom with the National Register Review Committee from the state, and they unanimously passed our nomination on to the National Park Service. We got the minutes from the meeting in December, and we made the changes that they wanted, a few minor tweaks like adding how many people are buried in the cemetery. As of January 8th, our cemetery nomination is on the National Park Service's pending list, which means by the end of this month, it should be on the National Register of Historic Places. Which will be very nice. We had lots of help with the nomination throughout the efforts for maps and documents. Jake Bruggeman, Jack Wardell, Mike Pogge Weaver gave us tons of help with the technology of it. Laura Schaefer, Kelly Schlechter, Karen Menser, Deb Getzinger, Randy Kroll, Judy Schreck at the Assessor's Office, other people at the courthouse, the Kemper Catholic Alumni Association, the newspaper archives, and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. And Laura Sadowski, the state historian and historic preservation specialist, helped us with editing throughout. We appreciate the City Council's naming one of their strategic goals to commit funds to repair and preserve the cemetery's stone walls, fence, pillars, buildings, and monuments. In the 17 years since any major tuck pointing has been done on the stone walls, weather, neglect, and time have done a real number on them, and they need some major work. There's significant deterioration on them. Most of these stone structures in the cemetery were built between 1935 and 1938, and it's been a long time since they've been updated or consistently maintained. The wrought iron parts of the cemetery wall are also in need of maintenance. In the summer of 2020, several of us volunteered and began painting the metal fence parts and the gates. These have to be sandblasted or soda blasted by mobile sandblasting to remove the 80+ years of silver and black paint and the rust and the fungus and the other things that are growing on the metal parts. Only a few sections can be done at a time, because if we don't get to painting them right away before they get wet from dew or rain, they turn orange, and that doesn't work very well. So we have given 2 coats of paint to both the north and east gates and most of the north fence. We had planned to have the Grant roadside fence done this past summer, but we had problems with supply chain issues. We couldn't get the paint, and then the weather and our schedules kept us from getting it done. So that's on our to-do list for this coming summer. We also arranged to have the Mount Olivet Cemetery's wrought iron fence repaired in December, and about 100 finials that were missing were replaced. Carroll residents who care about the integrity and longevity of this beautiful fence paid for the materials and welding, and have paid for the paint and supplies for the ironwork in the stone walls. A granite slab with Carroll City Cemetery engraved on it was installed on a pillar at the north entrance to the cemetery. There had been a niche placed in that pillar back in 1937 when they built it, but never put the name of the city cemetery on it. The material for it was donated by Darren Janning, and Lauren Boyce donated the engraving for it. Other projects that we do each year, the members of the commission take turns cleaning and maintaining the cemetery museum on the west side of the cemetery. We've also cleaned some of the older gravestones agent that's approved by the National Park Service that doesn't damage to the older stones. And we created and sold the commemorative calendars for the cemetery sesquicentennial. Our plans for 2022, we want to continue to maintain the cemetery museum, finish painting the wrought iron cemetery fence, sell the remaining cemetery calendars, host a Chamber of Commerce coffee on May 27th at the Cemetery Museum, and you're all invited to come. Work with the American Legion to compile a list of all veterans buried in the cemetery. We're up to about 1,200 names of the veterans so far, and we're still working on making that as accurate a list as possible. We're working with the Carroll County Conservation to place a sign for the site of the Little Red Bridge on the Sauk Trail. And Carolyn can give you more information about that because that's your.
Yeah, I went out and met with Jason Christensen, and it's a county conservation project. But the Little Red Bridge was a footbridge that was started down where Rolling Hills Park is, near the Sauk Rail Trail, and kids and adults to get across the Middle Raccoon River took this Little Red Bridge. Well, all that's left, John Steffes found it, are a few posts and some cement base, and he painted them red so you can find them when you're on the trail. If you look over and you're standing by the greenhouse that's up on the hill, you'll see the red posts. Anyway, Jason is all excited. He wants to put a little commemorative sign down in Rolling Hills Park, but he wants to run the sign by the city people, where if they approve of the, of the design, then he wants to know where the city would allow him and his workers to place it, approve the size, etc. So they're working on that, and then before they do anything, they'll run it by the city and work with the city on where it's located. So, and they will pay 100% of it. They are not asking the city for any money. So that's about all I know at this point.
We also plan to send some people to the Preserve Iowa Summit in Mason City in June. And we're going to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the cemetery with a character walk on Memorial Day. We're working with the American Legion, and we're going to have people, students, adults, acting as characters who are buried in the cemetery. They'll stand by the graves and they will talk about the character that they are. And if any of you are actors and you would like to join this, we'll be more than happy. We've got lots of good variety of characters chosen to be in here. Our future plans in the future, we hope to work with the City Council to coordinate signage, especially along Highway 30 and Grant Road, for historical tourist sites such as the Laker Court and Graham Park. Again, we support the City Council's strategic goal to commit funds to repair and preserve the cemetery's stone walls, fence, pillars, buildings, and monuments. The cemetery is the oldest structure in Carroll, and it really needs to be maintained well and preserved well. In the National Register nomination, we wrote, "The city of Carroll has grown in population and geographic area, but the cemetery remains in its original location. Generations of citizens have visited and been visited in its boundaries. The 1879 fire, the industrial development of the early 1900s, and urban renewal in the late 1960s and 1990s radically altered Carroll's business and residential districts, but the cemetery has retained its permanence and significance." Thank you. Questions? Yes.
For future growth, how many years do you say we have room for there?
There are just under 9,000 people buried there. There are a little over 18,000 lots, burial plots. And then we also have the 8.8 acres of reserve ground where they have the cornfield and the community gardens down by the cemetery office. So we have a little more room.
Long ways to go.
Yeah.
All right.
Refresh me, don't we have 10,000 in the budget for, is that just for the wall or also the bathroom improvements?
That's
For
the
both?
soffit,
Um,
bathroom.
The bathroom improvements, yeah.
Okay.
10,000. It's in hotel.
Hotel motel.
Yeah,
Yep.
but we had it in there, as I recall.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Vicki? Now's your chance. Vicki, thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless you. Moving right along, I believe we are finished with outside agencies. And so we will now move to Parks and Recreation, budget workshop part of tonight's agenda. So we will move into that. And Chad.
All right, here we go. We'll start off on page 50 of your handbook. It'll just kind of go over the budget cover sheets. starting off with parks and open spaces. We currently have 4 full-time employees, 1 superintendent, and then our 3 municipal service workers. We maintain 114 acres of parks land, 67 acres of special areas. Accomplishments from the last year, we finished phase 1 and 2 of ash tree removal projects. We got partnering with the Tigas family. We've got quite a bit of work done on Miracle Field. That should be completed in this next calendar year, along with our parking lot that will be done still in this fiscal year. Should be. We had state baseball here last year, and we hosted the first Kick It Up soccer tournament, which, working with some of the stakeholders with that, we will have back again this year. So we're very excited for that. A couple of our initiatives for the Parks Department, continuation with trail projects, including taking a look and seeing what our next area of parks or trails, will go. We're also looking at Merchants Park improvements through a grant and through some partnership with Region 12. A couple other ones that we thought of before it got into here. The slow pitch wall at the adult softball fields, increase in landscaping in our budget. That's due to the ash tree removal project. So we'll be increasing the amount of trees and I guess foliage that we bring to the parks. We're doing a lot of taking out of the canopy. We want to start adding back to them. And then Graham Creek restoration, that's a big one that will be coming up as well.
Oh, Chad, may I
Sure.
interrupt you? Will some of the trees that were removed from the cemetery be replaced or?
Yeah, so we've actually already started on that.
Yeah.
We went down to Earl May Distribution this past November. I took staff down and they have a park grade project, or program, I should say. Basically, these are trees that aren't able to be sold in stores. They're not at high quality, but they're perfect for golf courses, state parks, county parks, city parks, anywhere like that. We ended up bringing back 12 trees that day, and that's just with the limited inventory that we had. So we're going to continue trying to add as many trees to cemetery, golf course, and all of our parklands
That's great.
for a very minimal fee.
Good.
So
Thanks.
we're very
Sorry to
excited to bring
interrupt.
that. No, you're
Thank
good. Good question.
I got a couple questions on, are you done with this section?
We're still on it.
Okay. Well, the expenses part here.
Sure.
Okay, last year on capital outlay, you were looking at 76,000 estimate and end up at 218,000. And the same for services and commodities, you were at 183 and we're at 322. What happened that
That'll
made
be
the,
on page 114, I believe.
Under tab I.
Under tab I. Thank you. What was the question again? Sorry.
why such a large increase on those two items from the estimated of this time last year?
I think it was kind of looking at some different projects that we might have went in different directions with. Are you saying in the capital outlay?
Mm-hmm.
Come back. And then wasn't that moving some project money out of here until next fiscal budget?
So a number of the items under the capital area would have been items that were not completed in fiscal 21, but they were budgeted in 21. So we've already done a budget amendment to bring a number of those items forward under the capital area.
Right, I see that.
So, and then under the services and commodities, without having that file in front of me, I'm venturing to guess the big one is re-estimating for funds for the Emerald Ash Borer line item. We've been consistently putting some funds aside every year.
Correct.
And then if we haven't spent it in one year that it originally was put aside,
Yep,
then
that's
we've been
what that
carrying
is.
that monies forward to still have that available.
I get it now, but it wasn't, I didn't know what that was. And
Yep.
and that's a huge increase.
Yeah, I mean, we dropped about 30,000 in this year out of emerald ash borer compared to last year.
So you're assuming that those increases are.
It's just the amount that we're able to do.
Yeah, and the reality with the emerald ash borer, it's been in the county for about 3 years now, and that bug, as it goes through, it's about a 10-year cycle.
Yeah.
We have a very long ways to go, and we're going to be spending a lot of money because all the ash trees that are in the right of way, that will be the city's responsibility to take down, and we continue to take them. Now with this project that we actually just bid out,
Bid today. Correct.
that will
Bring
take care
down
of
67.
And how does that compare for like our current facilities? Like, I think this completes the cemetery.
Correct. This will complete the cemetery. I want to say it gets us pretty close to halfway at the golf course, and then we still got a long ways to go in parks.
And the challenge is going to be once the tree, once you get through this 10-year cycle, these trees, I mean, they're going to be dead.
Yeah.
And now we're
Completely
going
bald.
to have to go out
Chicago
and-
went through it, I want to say 10 years ago, and they've been seeing the long lasting effects of it. I mean, just whole streets, no foliage on any of their trees. It's a fairly slow cycle in comparative to, it takes 4 to 8 years basically for the tree to die. And our parks guys and municipal service workers are doing a really good job of identifying the troubled trees first. So we're finding ones that have an extreme amount of foliage that have already dropped, or you can just tell that these trees are sick and ready to come out. So those are the ones we are focusing on now, and it's just going to progressively get worse.
So we're looking at a long-term high expense on this.
Yeah.
And you're not treating any of them, are you? I mean, that's really.
Treating would be
It'd be awful,
minimum
And they die anyway.
5 times the cost, I would say. And that once you start treating them, it's a treatment every year on those trees.
That's quite an increase compared to before the ash borer came that we got to deal with. About 300,000. Wow. All right.
Well, I can't remember when we started putting funds away, just to give a little bit of history, but it's been a number of years. Maybe we even started, could have been 5 years ago, at least we started setting aside, I can't remember if we started with either $25,000 or $50,000.
Before Mike.
But we really hadn't started the actual tree removal until a few years down the road after we started funds. So we started to build up a little bit, and now we're spending those funds knowing that this was coming
Okay.
up.
All right.
Yeah.
That explains the increase. Thank you.
Any other questions on revenue, expenses? Okay. You can see we haven't changed at all in our authorized personnel. We haven't hit a point where we're completely overworked or anything. Our guys feel comfortable with the guys they have. Part-time is going to stay right around that estimated hours. Kind of looking how to refigure some things, even working with some of the Merchants players coming in this summer, working with Scott down at Merchants Park, helping take some hours off of him to prepare for ball games and clean up after ball games, things like that. Past that, we go to capital improvement items. At this point would be our oldest mower, or one of our oldest mowers, with a cabin blower. This would be replacing our oldest cabin blower that we use for all the trails, obviously the parks in the summer. It's what takes care of all the trails in town that we decide to clean off. That's full cab, heat, AC, everything along with it. A pull type mower. Now this would be kind of a new one that we would like to see in the parks department. That would help mow some of the high brush areas where we have native prairie grass that we only mow maybe 1 to 2 times a year. This would be down kind of around Rolling Hills Park, the Carroll High or the the Carroll entrance sign here at 71 and 30. We've let that grass kind of grow up, give it a natural look around there. Our mowers, you have to stay on it and do it a lot more often. If you let it start growing up, it starts balling up inside the mower and can wreck the blades. And having one of these, which is typically what the county would use on medians and road ditches, using those and cutting down the amount of times we actually mow these areas is going to help out a lot. Slit seeder, that's just replacing one that's probably older than I am. It's got plenty of use to it. It keeps breaking down. They no longer make parts for it. That just helps us get some good grass seed into the ground, whether it's on ball fields, soccer fields, which both of those require about every year. And then on top of any other places where we may end up doing some level work or some work in parks. Grapple bucket for the skid loader. That's a brand new item. We just got this skid loader in this calendar year, right? Wasn't too long ago. This would allow us to do some of the tree projects even on our own. Any big windstorms, it helps us clean up that brush right away, along with several other things. 72-inch mower, that one's replacing kind of our oldest mower that we have. And then band shell improvements. Right now we have 30,000 set aside just for a budget amount. We did meet with Shive after their initial inspection, and we're looking around 100,000 for total repair. So we're going to discuss it with Park Board and see if there's different areas or different ways that we can go about that. The good thing about the band shell, it will obviously qualify. It should qualify for a lot of different grants, historical preservation. The state's got a couple of grants, and then obviously some local grants. So we'll keep digging in on that. That's obviously one we just kind of started recently. So we will continue to work on and keep the council updated as we go. Any questions on that? Exciting stuff for now. Next, we'll go to the golf course. We do have 2 full-time employees. Our golf superintendent, it is an 18-hole public golf course. I think I saw there was 350 total memberships. Now that's total memberships sold last year, which is incredible for a town this size. I will put it that way. So that's really good to see. Initiatives for 23, irrigation system upgrades, including the pump house and possibly the irrigation head replacement. I'll go more to that in a second. And then also taking a look at new golf cart lease or purchase, that should say, because we're still waiting to get some of the numbers back from one of the distributors. This would be for replacing the carts next calendar year. Carts right now are about a year out on order time. So the carts we currently have are 5 years old, going into their 6th season. Got a lot of wear and tear on them. So this would be an upgrade, whether it would be a lease program or a purchase. We're still having some meetings this week and finding out what trade-in value would be estimated at before we can present further. 2022 reestimates and then your 23 recommendations. It stays pretty close to the same. I think golf is going to continue to trend upward for the next couple of years. That's one really good thing that came out of COVID. It was kind of the rebirth of golf. So it's exciting to see. Golf courses were on the verge of closing down in mid-teens of the 2000s, and now they're back into strong, good revenue source. So expenses, really not much has changed, especially personnel services or services and commodities. Capital outlay is going to change a little bit, and that'll be a little bit on the backside. Personnel, it's going to stay the same. They're all comfortable with what we have, then it's worked out pretty well for Scott and his team. In our capital request, we do have a truck with a dump box. They currently have a 1999 Ford F350, I believe, 250 maybe, with a dump box. It's completely rusting out. It's shown its age. It's actually the oldest vehicle that we have in the Parks Department. So that was one of the asks. 100-inch mower to replace his mower that he currently has. It's an older mower, and it's just next in the revolution of trading some of these out. The 100-inch mower, there's a huge advantage to that, especially on a golf course. Much wider mowing capacity. Get a lot more done in a lot shorter amount of time than the 72 inches. Hole 7 fountain, that goes right off hole 7 in that little pond, if you want to call it that. Our fountain went down over this past year, and if you guys have been out to the golf course, that one comes right off of the neighborhood right behind it. That's all storm water going right into that pond. So a lot of algae, a lot of gunk gets caught up in that pond. It needs that circulation from some sort of fountain to keep it agitated and keep it from looking lime green all throughout the year. We have one. It just went down, I believe, this past summer. Then the pump station irrigation head replacement. The pump station, the building itself is fine, but inside the concrete floors have completely settled right next to the well, causing things to shift. They're kind of sitting there free. There's not a lot of secureness for the pumps that are there, and the pumps are really starting to show their age. These pumps are 20 years old, have a lot of wear and tear on them. We have one pump that right now is working all the time during irrigation. Once that hits a capacity, the second pump kicks on. With redoing all this, it would basically limit and talk to each other. This one's running for a while, then this one will kick on. This one will run for a while, this one will kick in. Like I said, the pumps that are there are going on their, I think he said 2001 is when they were put in, and they're only supposed to last about 15, 18 years. So they've got a good life out of them. It's just time to get those replaced. Otherwise, we will not have irrigation at the golf course. And if you want to keep up with a nice golf course, you have to have irrigation. So we've been putting some money, the last 3 years, Laura?
Yeah, something like that.
3 years away for that. And then on the back side of that would be the control system and head replacement of the 465 heads, irrigation heads on the course. Right now, each one is tied in with another one, so the control of it isn't great. It's an older system. This would be replacing all those with a higher end head, and each one would be able to be controlled basically, from any point that Scott is on the course, which is a nice ability to have. It'll also detect any leaks, report back to us with any leaks or any problems that the irrigation system would have that we wouldn't be able to notice on the surface. So that's another big one that would really help. So any questions on golf course?
I would just add on that, just to add on the pump station and irrigation,
Sure.
There is some funding in the general fund and local option sales tax. I don't know. You didn't, right? You
Yeah,
didn't mention that.
I didn't.
To add the two for that project, the two combined together is about $425,000.
Go to the rec center, be next. We will talk more about the upcoming project later. What we'd say 7 o'clock, Mike. We want to go back to it. Okay.
And in the rec center, there's a capital. This is just operation.
Sure.
There's the capital project rec center also. So
Okay.
it's a different section.
Rec Center, focusing on memberships and providing recreational opportunities for individuals and families. Accomplishments from the last year, new basketball hoops. We got several new fitness equipment ordered. Treadmills a couple weeks ago. We have ordered bikes and ellipticals. Obviously, we have the Carroll Recreation Center renovation plan out for bid and is back. So initiatives kind of go off of that and then look for options to engage our past members and attract new members, including working on a new corporate membership program. Revenue, intergovernmental, that was COVID funds, correct?
It was a COVID grant, yep.
Okay.
Fitness facilities across the state, could have been public or private, could have applied for the funding and used on how much money we would receive. We had to give like a 2-year history of our revenue and expenses for the rec center. And then we were awarded this amount, $190,000.
So that's why you're going to see the obvious significant drop in total revenues there. We do expect with the hustle and bustle and everybody kind of getting back to normal, an increase in this next fiscal year in overall membership. I don't think it's going to be a big jump, but we do think it's trending towards an increase. Expenses, everything basically is staying the same. We're wrapping up a couple of things in capital outlay as far as last year's projects, some pool heaters, some little things like that. So really the capital outlay for this coming year would just be continual replacement of some of the older fitness equipment. Any questions on the rec? Okay. Move on to leisure services. Leisure services provides recreational opportunities for individuals and families. Accomplishments from the past year, baseball, softball programs, fall soccer, I believe was added, and then Kick It Up soccer tournament, which we, again, will look at doing this year as well. 23 initiatives, increased participation in programming of events, adding some new youth tournaments, and add 3 new programs. Now it's a goal our staff has set within itself. I'm very happy to hear that. Just continuing to grow, offer new things. We've already started planning some of, we just had our kids' night out a few weeks ago. That was normally a once a year thing. We're looking at adding a couple more throughout the year. Even partnering with Rachel on some, or not early out days, but some different programs, spring break, days that kids don't have school, providing options for them, either come down to the rec or the library on those days off and actually have those capabilities of doing something. Here, everything's staying basically the same. We didn't have any capital outlay requests this year. Looks like we're pretty caught up on a lot of our equipment. Yeah. Questions on leisure services? Okay. Next, we'll go to the Outdoor Aquatic Center. Focus on memberships and providing recreational opportunities for individuals and families. Accomplishments from the past year is getting the new lily pads and in fiscal year 23. We're looking at exploring some new events and features and increasing the overall use of the aquatic center. So revenue is going to stay probably the same, if not take a little bit of a dip. And I think that's just aquatic centers across the board. Right now is a hard time for aquatic centers. People during COVID went out and bought more pools than I think ever has been purchased in a year.
They've sure sprung up around town, haven't they?
Correct.
Man.
So fighting with that, there's several other pools, either even in town or in the county, that have opened up in the last couple of years. So it adds some good competition. So me and our staff are going to work on trying to find ways to attract us a little more and create maybe some events down there as well, just to keep some fun back in the aquatic centers. Expenses, really nothing. Capital outlay, we had no further requests. We are going to look at doing some equipment replacements in the future, such as doing something different with the slides, either adding a slide or replacing one of the slides, figuring out a way to do that. Trying to find some middle ground for those middle-aged kids. The speed slides and diving boards, that's for your older kids. You got the play area there for your younger kids, but there really needs to be a bridge for that gap in age groups. So we're going to start working and trying to plan for something like that. Cemetery.
Real quick, how you set for lifeguards? Is it looking good?
Right now, Jesse has gotten some calls and it's looking like some of her college kids that weren't going to originally come back this year are.
Okay.
So we are pretty excited. I think we're in a pretty good position right now. But we'll see what happens in a few months.
Great. Thank you.
As of right now, we're pretty decent.
Good.
Cemetery, focus is to assist with funeral services at the cemetery, maintain the cemetery grounds and buildings. Citizens continue making great comments about the upkeep and service by the staff. 23 initiatives is looking at the software that we currently have. Our cemetery site right now, we'd like a little more in-depth ways of maybe even GIS mapping the cemetery so we can get it down to the exact plots that we have open, everything marked, so we can be more accurate in our day-to-day services out there. And then obviously work on the wall. So,
Thank you.
no problem. Gets down to revenues. You can see grave openings and closings, deed fees, sales of lots. Those are likely to all stay right about the same. Expenses, other than, what's our main expense? Again, that's on 124 in I. We have what that main expense was in difference.
Excavator, mini excavator.
So that'd be in capital.
Yeah, that's your capital 142.
But, anyway, a little bit of a dip at services and commodities. We are taking out a little bit of contract work. And then, like I said, capital outlay is where our increases are. It is Jake and 2 part-timers out there. They do a fantastic job. A lot of compliments on the work they do out there. In the capital item requests, a UTV that will replace 2 of the old golf carts that they have been using, mostly for getting around the cemetery. Doesn't have a cab, doesn't have heat. This time of year, they're trying to show people around. Basically, they're in separate vehicles. For right now, that's not a bad idea with COVID and everything, but when things start getting a little better, having that handy, taking dirt back and forth from piles and just doing odds and ends work around the cemetery, it would be very, very beneficial instead of the 2 older golf carts that we currently have. Replacement of his oldest mower, and then the mini excavator as well. The reason behind the mini excavator, right now, anytime Jake has to dig a grave, he has to borrow the street's backhoe. So sometimes they've ran into times where it's been difficult if they're already on a project with it, it's obviously the priority. So, second reason is it doesn't always get you into spaces very well. It does have the stabilization arms that come down on each side. Now, if you're 3-4 rows deep, it's very hard to manipulate it into those areas where a mini track hoe would be ideal for it. A lot of cemeteries do have them, but it also could be shared throughout all of Parks and Rec and any city project that could be needed. On top of that, cemetery wall, we have put $20,000 towards the cemetery wall. We understand that's probably just scratching the surface, but until we get a little further guidance on what it's going to cost, that's the number we're going to start with. Any questions on cemetery? So we can skip to hotel motel. That'd be on page 68. So some of the accomplishments from last year from hotel motel, and that's the collection from every person's stay at any local hotel or more motel. Is that just in city limits or is that county?
Just city
Just in
limits.
city limits. Part of that, finishing the website, Merchants Baseball, we provided money to the merchants to be able to join the Mink League. Continuous funding for trails, rec center HVAC, northeast shelter house roof, Graham Park bathrooms roof, and cemetery north building. Now those are all still in this fiscal budget that we're currently in, and those last 3 have not been completed at this time, but are planned this spring. Uh, 23 initiatives, funding for the Sauk Rail Trail, the grant match with the county, and continued funding for trails. Any questions on that? Okay. You can jump up to capital projects. That'll be on page 77. Capital projects in the culture and recreation area of city government, including library, parks, trails, golf course, recreation center, and cemetery. Items completed this past year, completion of the pickleball courts, the new scoreboards at the youth sports complex. Some of our initiatives for fiscal year 2023 be completion of the Graham Park revitalization, completion of northeast parking lot up at Kellen's Kingdom, as well as continued design or for other phases of trails. Capital project funds also are culture and recreation cover sheet includes revenues and expenditures from the following areas of the capital project funds: parks and recreation, rec center building project, and library city hall. So the 250, and that was to go towards trail projects, correct? Okay. So on the next page, it continues kind of the requests. I'm going to trail phase and design. Obviously, we know funding sources for the rec center building itself. Past that, I guess that's really all we have, including the renovations.
And we will come back to the rec center at
Correct.
7 o'clock. We have RDG. They'll come on and kind of talk about the bids that we received this week and kind of talk through the project at that point.
Guess then we can go to hotel, motel. I think we already hit that. What I have next? Local option sales tax equipment. We can hit the recreation center trust, which that would begin on 197.
That's under tab S.
Tab S. Laura. You can see it's some of the services, commodities, again, concessions. Really not a whole lot in these areas. If you go to 199, it's more just monetary or interest on deposits there as well. Gets to the library. Any real questions on rec center trust? Guess we can take a step back. Go back to 151, rec center cultural. That is under tab M. Kind of jumped around on that one. Screwed up my notes. Basically, this would be for the theater and the rec center. Don't bring a lot of, we don't have a lot of charges for it. We are looking at ways of increasing the overall use of the facility. We're talking small group concerts, possibly comedians, just different fun events to be hosted there and just get some good use out of the facility as a whole.
And I think I just want to interject too. Sure. I think one of the things that people don't really realize about the theater is it is booked a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, while there may not always be a public event, there's a lot of rehearsals and practices that get ready for those public events. So it's booked about 180 days out of the year.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
And the salary that comes out of that is Pam's.
Yeah.
We allocate some of her pay towards theater when she does the
Towards
rentals.
booking and reserving.
Yeah. And then we do a little bit of repair and maintenance, a little bit of the Mid-American bill, electric we charge.
You can see a large equipment replacement price or a budgeted item in there. And I believe that was originally for seating, if I'm correct.
Well, it's I know there's a theater group that's been meeting, and I know they've had a lot of different ideas. We know that like the lighting in the theater is really antiquated and problematic, and frankly, it doesn't really meet standards. The sound system in the theater is really problematic. In fact, a couple of the groups bring in their own sound system to supplement what we can provide there. And then there's been requests to change out the seating. Now, I think reality is, I think what I have expressed is the seating is adequate. It's functional. Mm-hmm. I think they more don't like the aesthetics of it, and let's worry about functionality first and aesthetics later. And so these dollars have been here to kind of address those deferred maintenance issues we have.
And that's what I was bringing up. I think it was originally put in there for the seating, and now we are finding, like you said, the lighting is inadequate. The speakers need updating. There's a lot of different things that need to go into that area to really bring it up to good potential.
And again, those systems are 40 years old. So
Yeah, if you want to attract people to come for events, they'll expect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
I think all of that is mostly original in there, except for, was it the curtains? We maybe just
Furnace
did
has been
some-
replaced. Some of the
yeah.
lighting's been
Mhm.
updated. Speakers have been replaced. Yeah, and the sound system, that panel upstairs has been replaced.
But how long ago?
That was probably about 10 years ago. It's getting age. And going back to the seats, we researched, it was about $300 a seat. You have 398 seats. So that tells you where you would be at just to replace seating. I think the floor is kind of one of the main things to do. Curtains are okay. Sound system, average. It needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Lighting's awful.
Yep.
That's the worst part. The theater and some of those groups have taken some initiatives and done some things to improve the lighting on their own. So
Good thing about it is the
Yeah.
seats will probably be back into
they are.
the look.
They
now,
are back.
so
We had a
There's
guy
really no
from
reason to change them.
a guy from BV, a professor up there, came down and said, "Yeah, these colors are back." You
Yep.
see them in theaters.
They are.
There you go.
Thanks.
Any more questions on that? Okay. We can jump to 177s, kind of our local option sales tax areas.
Tab Q.
177 is just showing that we do have money put away in the current budget, and that was all to go towards HVAC at the rec center, correct?
No, I mean, there's sources this is coming from.
That was in your book. That lists out all the activities that are being funded by both hotel motel, we just discussed, and the local option sales tax. So it might be a little easier to see it on this sheet than going through each of the pages in the budget book.
I was just trying to highlight some of the page tabs that are under my department. On 178, that'll show some of the building improvements that we've done to the rec center over the past year. Currently have nothing coming up. That would be basketball hoops that we've replaced. What else is in that?
Equipment in the weight room.
Yeah, and equipment in the weight room.
We got some other replacements coming up.
And then I believe the last thing we have would be the Perpetual Care Fund. And that is on page 246.
Maybe tab V.
Yeah,
Victor.
V is in Victor.
V. So the Perpetual Care Fund, for those of you who don't know, is basically 50% of our sale of a plot goes into that state perpetual fund. And really, we can only spend the interest.
Yes.
Correct. We can use the principal for capital projects, but we do have to repay
Repay into it, correct.
And I know the question came up, state statute requires 20% or $50 per lot sale. It's the city's policy today is 50%.
It's 50%.
What's the balance? 400,000. It's a nice balance. When your cemetery gets full, that's when you generally use that to mow and do the other, because you're not selling lots anymore. That area's been, the revenue is going to be gone. So that's a lot of times we just use your perpetual funds for.
Yeah, sustainability reasons.
Correct.
Yep. And we've always done 50%. It's been 25. You're required 25, but you're
20% is what's stated.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, we've done more than what we needed to, which is good. It has a healthy balance.
At the end of fiscal 23, it's projected to have just over 600,000 in that fund.
I think that's about
Is that
all I've
about
got.
it? For all Parks and Rec? Pretty well done.
Try to make it as painless as possible.
Okay, are we gonna recess?
So I
Right
would say
now, is that
let's
what you'd like?
recess. We should have dinner here shortly.
Okay, and then we will reconvene shortly at or near 7 o'clock.
Correct. Yep.
Do you want me to?
Okay, we are back in session underway, and we will continue tonight with renovation project and the bids that were received. Chad, do I turn it over to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So on February 1st, the city of Carroll received and opened bids for the Carroll Rec Center Building Improvement Project. You've all been sent those numbers. Jensen Builders came back a little over $9,076,000. Building Crafts, $9.248 million. Baiting Construction was at $7.935 million. And PRC, which is Perry Reed Construction, ended up at $8.11 million. And that's base bids plus alternate ones. While city staff is reviewing all bid materials submitted, the low bid appears to be from Baiting Construction in the amount of $7.935. This compares to the estimated construction costs from RDG of $6,721,036. The base bid covers all building renovations except the West Side Fitness Room, and alternate one covers the West Side Fitness Room renovations. The construction estimate from RDG covers the base bid and alternate number one. Estimated costs. Here's a list of what we had estimated in this project with construction. $7.935 million. Survey, geo permits, FF&E, design and expenses, miscellaneous and construction contingency, with a total cost of work estimated at $8.965 million. Funding for the project is anticipated through local option sales debt, local option sales tax collections, general obligation debt, general fund, AHU funding, hotel motel, and lost AHU funding as well, for a total of $7.627 million.
I'm going to interject here. One thing I would point out, the lost debt of $7.62 million, that was initially set about a year ago by council based on estimated construction costs. When the lost referendum was set and the proceedings for the debt issuance for this project and the lost referendum passed, that referendum was authorized at $7,477,400. So if you took that amount and all the other funding, potentially the council could issue up to or approve a project that's $9,484,400. So there would be sufficient funding to do the project based on, again, the referendum on the local option sales tax that was approved.
So based on current funding available and the bids the city received, the project is short $1.338 million in available funding. Staff and representative from RDG will review and discuss this information tonight. Now, we have talked to RDG a couple of times since, and just kind of looking at our options, I guess, going forward. So is Brad on?
Yeah, Brad's on, and I think he's going to cover that.
Perfect.
Brad Rodenberg, architect with RDG. Thanks for having me at your meeting. Obviously, the bids didn't come back in our favor, but it's something that we have seen on 4 or 5 projects here as of late, local projects across the state of Iowa. And it's not just a local material and labor issue there in Carroll. It's more of a national material and labor issue from that standpoint. So, and we really see no change in that until 2023 or the next 18, 24 months. It's really going to be that specific way from a construction standpoint. So what I wanted to do is just walk through a few potential options that we have moving forward. and maybe the pros and cons of each one of those options specifically as it relates to this rec center project and keeping things going. So our first option, and maybe Mike touched on this a little bit, is to raise the overall project budget. So this obviously is coming up with the $1.3 million difference in construction costs and allows us to move forward directly into construction. Also, the project wouldn't have to go through any sort of value engineering process, which could potentially end up with, if we did go through that process, we'd end up with some interior finishes decrease, quality decrease, cutting of scope. But again, obviously the pro of that is moving it right into construction. But again, it's coming up with the difference in those costs compared to the bid and the budget. Option 2 would be to redesign, rebid, take a look at the specific scope of the project itself. If we were to only do the locker room remodel and the AHU replacements, that would be an option. We as a design team would probably incur $25,000 in additional fee to redraw that within 1 month's time, to have those drawings be ready to send back out on the street for bidding. And then of course the bidding period would be another month. So potentially in 2 months' time, we could redesign, redraw based on, further scope discussion with Mike and Chad and his team there, and receive bids for that redesign itself. A con maybe, so like I said, looking at things right now in the next 18, 24 months, we're still going to see the labor and material shortage and problems and longer lead time items for certain things. And of course, we would try to work around some of that. But with the rebid, we still might be putting ourselves in the same or similar situation, and maybe would not see the full return of value on the cut scope, if you will. Another option would be to negotiate with the apparent low bidder who was bidding construction, as Chad mentioned. RDG and the city of Carroll have had some discussions with Nick Bating over there at Bating Construction, and trying to compare our last cost estimate with their low bid, and really starting to dig in on where were we off, or where the difference is at, so we could start to head down a road of potential value engineering options. Question would be, if we do head down the value engineering route, we're trying to cut money out of the project. Is there a specific number we're trying to get down to, right? So if we had that number, we'd be able to get direction. So looking at that right away, it would give us direction if it's feasible or not to actually get down to that number. And if we're trying to cut too much out of the project, that it may require us to rebid anyways. So we also wouldn't want to head down the path of, well, let's just see how much we can VE out, because I don't think that will get us where we want to go in the end. And we'll just keep spinning our wheels and not get to a good end solution. This value engineering process isn't abnormal. Bating Construction and RDG have gone through that before. So that would be a plus, having that experience. But from a contractual standpoint, the city would have to enter into a contract with Bating for their current bid amount, and then based on what that VE number is, we would then change the contract down once we have the drawings where they need to be. So those would be the three main options. And of course, the last option would be to put the project on the shelf and wait. But we would prefer not to do that, knowing that bidding conditions aren't going to be getting any better in the next couple years, and things will certainly not get any cheaper. So I think that all being said, it really comes down to, what's the end product that we want and are after, and a building that'll really serve the community of Carroll the best. So that kind of goes through some options that we have as far as moving forward. I can talk through a few other things, Chad or Mike, but maybe pause a minute, get some reaction.
I guess
Go ahead.
I've got a couple questions. With the valued engineering, what's the percentage that this would save on this project? And then I'm sure there's a cost that goes with this. What's the cost to that too?
And can you just give us an overview a little bit? Mike explained it to me a little bit today.
Oh, the valued
First time I'd
engineering.
ever heard the term.
I think, yeah, I want
And
to get
so for
some.
the benefit of all the council, what is value engineering exactly? And so just kind of walk us through that, Brad, and then
Sure.
and then certainly address Kyle's question too, because that's mine as well.
Yeah, so if we as in the city of Carroll decided to negotiate with Bating Construction, first we I think would have to decide on a number that we feel comfortable getting down to, right? So that would give us an end goal to work towards. So from a value engineering standpoint, as we like to call it, we would begin to look at a number of different things as far as exterior wall construction. Currently it's constructed as CMU and brick, but what would be the savings or other benefits if we went to a precast exterior wall construction? Obviously the aesthetic becomes a bit different, but that would be an option. We have a lot of glazing or glass at the second level running track level. So if we decrease that by 50%, that's real dollars that would come out of the project that we would see as a benefit. Obviously, we'd have to exchange that more expensive glass with an exterior material that would infill, but in the end, we would still see a savings. So from a value engineering standpoint, it's taking a look at the major parts and pieces of the project, whether it's materials or scope in general. So the new gym addition and the suspended jogging track is removed from the project. So we only focus on one part of the building, whether that's renovating the locker rooms and updating the mechanical units, and that's the project. So we removed the cost of and the site work around the addition, so that's no longer part of what would be bid upon by outside bidders. So from a value engineering standpoint, that we really are evaluating the bids that we received, how that relates to the estimate, and really where we could save money and still end up with a building that would include the programs and functions that we think are the most important for Carroll, and potential future phases that would add in a gym addition or a suspended jogging track.
Okay, so what I heard there, Brad, was you kind of morphed option 2 and option 3 together just then, whereas I understood, option 2 to be a redesign and rebid, a smaller project, whereas number 3 was a value engineer the total project. So to Kyle's point, if we kept the original scope intact, what would value engineering, by your estimation, save in terms of the total construction cost?
Mhm. Yeah, so taking a look at the current apparent low bidder is over by about 15%.
Correct.
From a construction cost standpoint. So the $1.3 million. It would be based on the program of the building and the finishes and materials. There's not a lot of frills, if you will. There's not a lot of extra things that we've added along the way throughout the design process that would be the low-hanging fruit per se that we could just pull out and save that money right away. So it's a matter of, again, deciding on that dollar amount that we need to get down to, Baiting and RDG looking at that dollar amount with the city of Carroll and figuring out if that's feasible or not. If it's not feasible, to negotiate down to that amount, then we either raise the overall project budget or redesign altogether, if that makes sense.
Okay, but back to Kyle's point, if I can somewhat pin you down, can we save by value engineering and keeping the footprint the same? Can we shave it 5%, 10%? Unlikely to do the 16% that we're off.
Yeah, unlikely to do the 16% we're off. We could probably get 5% off of the current number. But again, that's looking at a list of options and deciding which ones make the most sense to pursue.
Okay. But once again, it's unlikely that we can get to the 7.6 million project cost then, right?
It would be very difficult in my opinion, yes.
Okay. So then the council has to make that decision, based on option number 3 really wouldn't be available if we're still considering 7.6. Right. So let me ask you this. When was this? This is before I took office and many of us took office. When exactly was the timing of this engineering study delivered to the city and the estimate provided? Do you have a date there?
It looks like, let's see here. I'm sorry. Let me pull it up.
It was late in the year.
Yeah, middle of October 2021 was the 75% construction documents cost estimate that we provided.
Okay.
Which is referenced in your memo for tonight's meeting.
Okay. Well, excuse me if this sounds a little harsh, but it's a safe question to ask when you're remote and you can't punch me. But the question that I've had asked literally for a day and a half is what changed? And I understand inflation, it's everywhere and so on, but what in the world would have impacted this by 16% from the fall? Is that a fair question to ask?
Yeah, no, totally fair. Definitely fair. It is a number of things, I think. It's just the availability of materials, labor shortage. It's both local and national. But like I said, we've seen it on 4 or 5 projects that have bid within the last couple months that are over as well by 8, 10, 15, as much as 20%. So it's relatable, I guess, to other projects that we've seen bid here as of late.
Okay, so in fairness, I don't mean to interrupt, but I thought you were done. But in fairness to us, as your customer here is, you're saying that maybe with other projects that you've done, but is it about of rising costs or are we simply just getting underestimated? And again, I hope that's a fair question.
Totally fair. I think it's definitely a byproduct of rising costs, available workforce. We tried to account for those things within our estimate, line item by line item. But when comparing to the estimate and some of the numbers that we received through the apparent low bidder, there starts to be some specific materials related to where there was a bust, right? It might be concrete or exterior masonry or some metal fabrication, things that are not as readily available or have a longer lead time item based on when they would be delivered to the project. So again, we most definitely try to account for that in our cost estimate, but there are many unknowns thrown in the mix.
If I could interject real
Go
quick.
ahead. I still have a follow-up question, but go ahead.
We had this is Mike Poggy Weaver, Brad.
Hey, Mike.
And I know during our discussion this afternoon, Al made a comment. I don't remember exactly, and maybe you can fill it in, but the cost estimator went back to a couple suppliers and asked, why was there a big change? And if I remember right, like one of the suppliers, the cost estimator went to the supplier and said, how much is this material going to cost? And it went up from October to now 25%. Is that accurate, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Mike. That makes total sense. Sometimes we do reach out to actual suppliers or local suppliers that we maybe know will enter into a contract with local general contractors and really try to get their understanding of the market, try to get their price that they would provide for a certain scope. And sometimes they turn around, whether it's 4 or 5, 6 months down the road, and that cost goes up by 20, 30%. And, they just are able to shrug their shoulders and say, I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
But
So
that surprised me.
we try to work and get the most in-depth, knowledgeable information to include in our estimates as well.
Okay, my follow-up question then was the 16% that we're off on this project and the other, you said several that you've seen recently. Is this consistent with the shortage that you've seen with the others? Or is this unique, and why?
Related to project type?
Yeah, you said that you've
where
seen
we
some
were-
other projects
where we
come
were
in.
off, or
Yeah.
just altogether.
Yeah.
I think it seems to be by looking at the bids that we received and comparing it to our estimate. Some of the things start to become similar, but it all depends on some of the local contractors, subcontractors, competition. There's only one person or one subcontractor that teams up with 5 or 6 different general contractors. There's really no competition in that certain division, whatever it is. So they're less likely to be as competitive with some of their pricing. So we run into that on projects, across Iowa and across the nation.
Okay, and that helps validate why, but once again, unless I misunderstood you, but the shortfall, is this consistent with some of the other shortfalls you've seen on these other projects?
I would say yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. And then we're not planning on making any firm decisions tonight. We're just here for discussion.
Sure. Sure.
And so I don't know what direction the council wants to take, but moving forward, if we would choose to do a redesign and rebid, say do a portion of it, using your example, just the locker rooms and the HVAC, just using your example, you said it would be another $25,000 on top of the nearly $500,000 we've already spent with you. Can you not cut us a better deal on that? Under consideration
we
how
could
far we're
definitely
off
start
here?
to look at the hours, and depending on the scope and the direction that we we go, there's more or less overlap with, especially with the building
Right.
systems and the electrical, mechanical things that might have to happen outside of the scope of the building that we're trying to renovate or add on to. So I think it really depends on a number of factors, but we would most definitely, we want to see this project be built, and we definitely want to contribute to that success. So absolutely.
Would you consider doing it for gratis?
Contractually, we're set up different than that, but it's definitely something that we could have a discussion with internally.
Very good. That concludes my questions for now. Anybody else?
Well, I got a little comment. I had an engineering contractor talk to me once this came out, and they were not surprised to see that this was way over, because they did a deal, and within 6 months after they did it, the bids come in 50% more than what they. And so I asked him, I said, when's it going to end? You know, he just had no clue how much higher it's going to get.
I was pleased that we, hi Brad, this is Carolyn. And
Hey Carolyn, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I was pleased we had 4 bidders.
Yeah.
And the fact that the others were even higher, and there was a larger gap for the others than Baiting beyond the estimate. This didn't surprise me at all. And if anybody remembers the situation the supervisors found themselves in, and this was before COVID, and I'm sure you followed it, Mark, that the bid, the low bid came in 4 million over what the people voted for, which was the 8.95. And so they were in a mess and handled it the way they wanted to, which, they used a couple strategies. And then the same engineers, they were designing another law enforcement center south of Carroll, and that bid, again before COVID, came in 7 million. I guess my concern is the 25,000 to me on something this complex with the HVAC back so old, and you're having to do all of the HVAC, mechanical, electrical, the things you don't see but cost so much, that I don't know, just from what I've been reading, there's so much uncertainty with the supply chain, as Brad said, getting the materials and so on. My concern is, okay, he said he could redesign, it would take a month or so, but then another month to get all the bidding documents together. So we're kicking the can down the road and not making a decision and grabbing this while we can before we're in a totally unknown situation, and what's going to happen to the prices of the materials and the labor and those kind of things will be much more significant than 25,000 for a redesign when you think about a $7.5 million project. So, and consider also the construction contingency. As you said, we, the council back in March, committed to a $500,000 design with RDG. Several of us took tours to facilities that they designed, the state gym at Iowa State, which was phenomenal, that they, anyway, the DMAC project, and then the downtown Y. And so we got to look at all these materials and so on. I learned so much. And as Brad said, there's a big difference, in the outside, the materials on the exterior, interior, the track, et cetera, et cetera. So we looked at some things that were really nice and would hold up, but they cost more. You go to a lesser grade, they may cost less now, but what about longevity? So we thought about all of these things and gave Brad input on, we want quality because we want longevity. We don't want to have to replace things. So I too was not shocked at how this came out, given the world we live in now. There are just so many unknowns with all the things that Brad mentioned. So, I don't know, kicking the can down the road could lead us, we could be getting a lot less for a whole lot more. You know what I'm saying? We don't, nobody has a crystal ball. I mean, all the questions are good. But Brad doesn't know either what could happen. That's what scares me. I like to know. I like to say, okay, this is concrete, this is now. This we know. We don't know what's gonna come at us down the road, for what it's worth.
Hey, Brad, this is Misty. Quick question for you. What percentage do we have set back in contingency for this plan?
So our last construction estimate included a 2.5% design contingency. So moving into construction, we are using the $314,000 stipulated construction contingency that we received from the city of Carroll to use into construction.
Thank you.
So Carolyn mentioned it as far as the 4 bidders, which I think was really good to see. Baiting construction and Perry Reed construction were very close to one another from an overall bid standpoint. The others were far off, I think. And it really goes to show that Baiting and Perry Reed showed up to the pre-bid meeting and were there. And maybe understood the project a bit more from the ins and outs and seeing the existing building. So there's a lot to be said for that as well.
Brad, this is Misty again. I have another question. When you start talking about value engineering, I've been on for 6 years, and I don't know that I've been a part of a project where we've done that. I've had people talk about it, and I've heard people talk about it, but I've never been a part of it. So I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
If we were to do that, how quickly does something like that happen? And my other question would be, does the same team come back together to talk about those things? So the team that was on, the rec team that went through all of these designing meetings with you, our park and rec board and the people from the council, do those people come back to those meetings, or are you just specifically meeting with just city manager and the engineers? And
No, typically we would like to include the same group of folks back. And because those are the folks that have the history on the project and remember, as Carolyn talked through a bit, why certain decisions were made, whether it was based on something that we saw or based on our past experience with using certain products and those types of things. But so we'd want to bring that group back and at least lay out a list of options that we could work through as a group. And maybe it's taking that information and Mike and Chad and others in a smaller group would start to make decisions and give the project more direction as far as what we would try to incorporate.
how quickly can you usually move through something like that? I mean, if we were to say we wanted to do that.
Yeah, I think it goes to the availability of who you all would want to be at those meetings. We could get a list together in very short order. We've already started to do that. And we would run through that list decide on a direction. And again, we'd have to evaluate based on the level of value engineering, what that would require to either redesign or integrate that into something for baiting to use to move forward with the subs that they have on board. So that could be a couple months based on what we would do there. It could be shorter.
Does that mean the price changes then? I mean, as far as obviously we look to go down, but does that mean that the cost on some of the other items has the opportunity to go up during that 2-month time?
That's a good point. Yeah, it most certainly would potentially introduce that into the mix. And again, it goes back to the actual material costs themselves, or some of the subcontractors that submitted on the job. And if they didn't have any competition, they were able to, bid 15% higher maybe than usual, knowing that there wasn't another contractor in the wings that they were competing against. That competition might change a little bit, but it still would have the potential to save money, or from a material cost standpoint, it might continue to rise. Again, it's obviously an unknown, but things are not likely to get any cheaper.
And I had one more question. Sorry.
Sure.
You mentioned in order to do value engineering, you would have to enter a contract with obviously Baitings, because that was our low bidder. So obviously when you enter a contract with them, it's for the price of their bid, but the whole idea is that we're going to shave things down or change things, correct?
Right. Yeah. And that's when, if we do have a certain number or a certain percentage that we're trying to get down to, it really gives us direction on getting down to that specific amount. And if we have that amount initially before even entering into a contract, we could really see if that is a feasible thing to do. If not, if it's 5% more feasible, if it's 10, 11, 12% less likely. But that would be the goal, is to get down to a certain specific amount. It gives Baiting the confidence from the city that, yeah, we want you on board. We want you to help you with this project, rather than for them and us to go through a value engineering process. And in the end, we all decide to go a different route, for an example.
Gotcha.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, are we through with Brad at least? Randy, you've got a question.
And we ask something now, or?
Sure.
So,
Could you
Just
come to the
come
mic?
forward and,
Thank you.
by policy and procedure, we ask that you introduce yourself, but I know who you are, but if you would.
Randy Toft, live at 708 North Adams. Some of this discussion makes my toes curl. I've been in the construction business for 52 years, since the first check I got. And value engineering was pretty common at least 35 years ago. And I've seen some projects that did sizable reductions. It is possible, but I'm not sure it's possible now. We buy things by the seat of your pants at this point. You got it on your shelf? Okay, how much is it? Then they can just do whatever they want. But my main objective coming up here and speaking is, I heard the number 9.6 million with all the contingencies, this, that, and another thing. That sounds extremely close to $13 million that the city voted against. I can't see that. This amount of money is just overwhelming to me. And I don't know how we got here when, in fact, the 13 million was voted down. So that's all I really have.
do you have a copy of the two-page memo on the bid so we can see all the other, beyond the construction costs, like the soil and all the things we have to do? Do you have a copy of, or do you have an extra copy?
This one?
Would you like a copy to
Absolutely.
see all the add-ons?
You know that.
Thank you so much.
How they arrived at that number? And
Gene?
Jean Ludwig, I've been a member of the rec center since practically it started and have certainly used it a lot. And my feeling is that there are areas of and I can only speak to the ladies' locker room, I'm just telling you, that appear to me that if we were going to re-look at this plan, there are some areas that are not in that bad of a shape that we might be able to use some of what we already have if we're going to look at redoing this plan, and I wish that we would, so that we would get those things that we absolutely have to do done. But the things that are adding on and adding more distance, I've been opposed to adding more the track, for the point of not only is it more cost now, but it's also more maintenance in the future. So I would like for the group to encourage, and I would hope to be a part of the planning group if you do this, because I was not part of the first one, to look more at what we absolutely have to do and what we would like to do and separate them. And I know that they're very much intertwined in this plan. And that's, my thought is that look what we can keep, but there are some things that absolutely have to be done. I realize that. So thank you.
Thank you, Gene. I would like to interject a little bit on your comment on the 13 million. That's been a misconception that's out in the public, and it's hard to deal with. If you look at the June 8th of 2020 agenda we actually was in there that we said if the local option sales tax passes, we will put 7.6 million towards the renovation of the rec center. The GO bond was basically for the pool. That did not pass. So the misconception is it all failed, but really it didn't. And that rumor got started, and I can see how that got started. One failed and everybody thought it was failed. But if you look at that agenda of June 8th of 2020, and then you look at the following meeting, the minutes of that meeting, it passed by a vote that that's what we're going to do, and that's how it was perceived up to the election. So I just want to clarify that it wasn't the 13 million that failed, it was a GO bond of 5.9 that failed.
I'd like to add to that. I brought, we had to follow in December of 19, we started discussing with our Allers and Cooney bond lawyer on how to proceed not only with issuing debt, the GO bond, general obligation debt, lost bonds, so that the debt is paid for with lost revenues. But we had to follow a legally prescribed process. And we worked with bond attorney and we worked with PFM to work through different bonding scenarios. So we had to deal with two legal questions. And we had to pass 3 resolutions to get to the point of asking to issue bonds, and then also to craft the ballot language. And in all 3 of the resolutions, one of which was to set a date for a public hearing, and that was set for June 22nd, 2020. And the same all 3 resolutions that we were required by law to follow according to Code of Iowa. And it's all stated in that June 8th packet, all had the following verbiage for all 3 resolutions. And it was this: now therefore let it be resolved that this council meet at the council chambers, blah, 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 on the 22nd of June. I'm reading the verbiage specific to the June 22nd public hearing. And it says that for the purpose of taking action on the matter of the issuance not to exceed 7,610,000 general obligation local option sales tax bonds, the proceeds of which bonds be used to provide funds to pay the costs of construction, reconstruction, improvement, enlargement, extension, and equipping of a rec center. That exact verbiage was in all 3 of our legally prescribed ordinances. And the bond language that we used on the ballot was exactly the bond language that we had used for the 2012. And it doesn't state this specifically because this was stated in our resolutions. So you keep it broad on the ballot language so you aren't just targeting a single project, and then your hands are tied and you don't have flexibility to do other projects that may come up. So it was the same language that people were used to, and basically called for enhancing the quality of life for people by taking care of city facilities, blah, blah, blah. 75% for that, 25% for debt, for lowering debt on our taxpayers. So debt relief. So we did what we had to do according to law, and it was all public. All our meetings were public. The public hearing for June 22nd was published in the newspaper. It was on the radio. There were many, many sources, and this was all at the city website. We had open meetings. Jack gave multiple tours, even gave private tours. And so that we followed the letter of the law. Nothing was secret.
I'm not sure if this is the correct time, but this is Mary Bruner.
Hi, Mary.
Hi. Would I be able to make comments?
Of course. Can you hear us, Mary?
Yes.
Okay,
Can you
yes,
hear
of
me?
course. Yes, of course. Yeah, go ahead with your questions or your comment.
Okay. First of all, thank you for letting me be a part of it remotely like this. It's very nice when I can't be there in person. I really have enjoyed being on the Parks and Recreation and Cultural Advisory Board because I've learned so much about what the city offers to everyone in all the realms that you've talked about tonight, from golf course to trails and all the things that make Carroll Carroll. When I was much younger than I am today, the rec center was built, and it really was a shining star in our community and in the surrounding communities. And I think everyone, it seems, can agree that now, 40 years later, it needs some updating. And I have been following this since 2020 and since those resolutions were passed and through the whole voting. And I believe due diligence has been done and lots of hours have been spent in deciding what are the needs of the community and the rec center now. Not just wants, but I feel like, I think the restrooms are obvious, the locker rooms are obvious, but that walking track is also, I think, a huge part of it, because what we currently have has safety issues for people who want to walk there, with everything else going on the floor. So I thank you as a council and for all the work that's been done to date. I thank you for your consideration of the project. But I really think it's a part of our community that, you know, can enhance the lives of so many different ages, different needs. New Hope, when I was able to use the water as part of my rehab, New Hope is there, school kids are there, people are there on their lunch breaks. It's a very, very highly utilized facility. And I know numbers sound frightening, but again, it's the world we live in. And I think the council did a wonderful job of deciding how this was going to be funded. Now, I know the bids are higher than we expected, but I also think, you know, there's a way to figure this out, no matter. I listened to your options as they were presented. So I'm really urging you to push ahead and take care of the rec center as it needs to be and deserves to be. I'm happy that Laverne brought up the misinformation, because I listened to your planning session the other night where you talked about trying to get, you know, the word out to the public. And you do have things online, and you do, you know, we are able to access them, but you know, the social media is out there, and as soon as this story was published about the bids, the comments, there is a real misinterpretation of the vote and the funding and the pieces of the project that are still being, you know, that can be funded and that are part of the project. Yes, the pool section, the 5 million was voted down, but you know, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about maintenance and upkeep here, which we have to do on every city property and project. So I guess, you know, I do think the council has a task to get the correct information out to the citizens. And I really, you know, am strongly encouraging you to make this project happen for our community. So that's my thing. Thank you.
Thank you too, Mary. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Randy.
One more thing. Randy Toft again. We hear the word salad of what they did before, and that's fine and dandy. It's all legal and whatever. But the point is, elections have consequences, and I feel that a majority of the voters in the last election gave some direction as to what was supposed to happen. And I would hope that at least half the bunch would consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Any other comments or thoughts as the night wages on? Chad, do you have anything to add that you want to at all? I think we pretty well, you know, heard it. And again, we're not trying to reach any firm decision on it tonight, just open for discussion and dialogue and let it simmer. We do remember that if we do take action on it, pretty much the soonest date is most likely going to be on February 14th, which is a regular scheduled city council, unless we would call for a special meeting, which I don't see a need to do that. Remember, the bids are good for 30 days. And so that's going to shave off about half of it right there. So we will need to reach a decision and a consensus pretty much no later than that evening. We've pretty much heard the options. I don't have, I think Brad covered all of the options quite well, and thank you once again. There is, what I would call maybe an option 1A or 3A, and I would maybe, and again, no decision tonight, but just be thinking about the possibility of, we've heard an awful lot about the vote and the misinformation and so on. And, I would just throw out there that another option would be to put this on another public referendum. And in doing so, everybody gets a chance to vote on it. Comments aside, it's the votes that matter in the end under a public referendum. And if we do so, that would be kicking the can down the road. I get that. I understand that the bid may no longer be good. We certainly can't ask the low bidder to keep it out but the soonest we could do a public referendum, per my understanding, is you only do these about twice a year, and we're already past the 46-day deadline to do a March vote. So it would have to take place, I believe, the second Tuesday in September. I don't have a calendar. The good side of that is there would be a possibility to for the pros and the cons to formulate their campaigns, and if there would be perhaps the idea or the notion of some private fundraising that could contribute to this, similar to other projects that have happened, that would be an opportunity for those people to organize as well. And I'm not necessarily saying this is, please, I don't want this to go out here tonight saying this is what I'm advocating for. I'm just saying that there is maybe another option to consider. And let's all be thinking about it. And unless anybody has any other comments about it, we will, strive to have a decision made by a week from Monday.
I do have a couple comments, Mark, just for everybody sitting here. I guess you made a comment that strikes me. You said so that everybody would have a chance to vote, but correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody did have a chance to vote at the last referendum, correct?
Yep, eligible voters.
Okay, so everybody already voted. I really don't see, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't pay for another referendum. I think that's a waste of our money.
There's a cost associated with that too.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I just didn't know if all the new people knew that. So I wouldn't pay for another referendum. I don't think that's necessary because I think we asked the question, we got the answer, but we also know what we asked for, and we know that we can do what we've talked about doing for a long, long time. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second is, when you say pros and cons, I guess I'm going to ask, do you mean among this group?
No.
Because I think we're smart people, and I think we are the ones that need to talk about pros and cons. I honestly don't. I mean, we're the ones taking care of our city facilities, knowing that the building is 40 some years old that hasn't had a ton done to it. We are the smart people that need to take care of those pros and cons, listening to our staff and what they're telling us. Also knowing that the longer we take this, like Carolyn said, the more expensive this is going to be. We aren't going to be able to get this done, no matter whether we piece this out or we do it all. It's going to be more expensive, whether it's a month from now or it's 6 months from now or it's a year from now. I mean, you know that. Everybody here knows that.
Yep.
I know that because I know that parts and pieces that I'm trying to get today for my business, something that I could have bought 30 days ago, I can't even get it at that quantity right now for the price I used to get it at 30 days ago. In fact, I have to take 6 months worth of it. So everything is changing fluidly. And I don't think I don't see it getting any better from my vendors. I can't think that it's going to get any better for these contractors, these builders, this labor market. I mean, the uncertainty comes from not knowing who they're going to have to do that job when they're ready to do that job. And if we don't say now, if we wait a few months, they're going to take another job and we're going to be sitting. There's just not enough people to do the jobs and there's not enough material.
Can I add one thing, Mark?
Sure.
Jack Wardell, our superintendent. A lot of these HVAC units that we're using, and Andy and Todd Wenninger, the groups are fixing, there's parts they can't get anymore. Those are getting harder and harder to get. At some point, you're not gonna be able to get parts. Sure. Then what are you gonna do with the system? That is 45 years old, ran every day.
Yeah.
It's time. With that part, without anything else, has to be done. And we've allocated money. The money's sitting there to spend to get the HVAC units done. Get them out from out there, get them up on the roof so they're easier to repair their new equipment. You'll save money. You know, your bills are going to be less. So we just have to do that.
I want to talk about the value engineering, but I don't want to kick this down the road very long. I really don't. I mean, that's my honest opinion. Like, it's a building that needs some serious attention. I don't like the price either. Nobody does, but we go 9 months of crappy weather here in Iowa, Carroll, and there are a ton of people that use that inside facility. And Mary's right. You can't walk in the gym without getting smacked with a ball. So, the kids should be able to use it just as much as the adults. I mean, if you're not there, I understand why it's maybe not important to you. I get it, but it's so used. That's just where I am at personally. And I truly believe we are never going to get this any cheaper. And it's sad, but we're not. I mean, we can value engineer it down. We can make some changes without a complete redesign, but
I think everyone here agrees they want to keep the rec center.
I would hope.
It's 45
I would hope
years
so.
old, and there's just too many
think
things
there's
that are
any-
going wrong.
No, there's
I'm
no
there every
dissension on
day.
that.
You know, the men's shower, a little component, $1,000 each time we replace it. We
Yeah.
replace them all the time. Let's get it. You know, we need new showers. We need.
Let me just clarify the pros and cons thing. I probably didn't paraphrase that correctly, but I'm just saying the advocates versus the dissenters is what I'm saying. People could vote. That's what I meant by that.
I guess we can talk about that later, but
Whenever.
I think they did vote. I mean, I really do think people voted.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't go back to a referendum. That's just my personal
And that's
opinion.
fine.
We paid
Yeah,
for
I
that, so
understand
let's
that.
not do that
Yeah.
again.
There were two questions on the ballot. One for the, for the
Sunset.
the geo bonds.
Yeah.
And then the lost bonds. And we were very clear throughout the whole process that if you vote yes for the lost funding, it was going to go for what I read, the rec center renovations, constructions, additions, etc.
Didn't it say it would be the choice? I mean, it didn't say it would.
No, I read you exactly from the resolution. Not a choice at all. The 7,610,000, the proceeds of which bonds will be used to provide funds to pay for it. And this is now let it be resolved. Section 2, the funds will be to pay the costs of construction, reconstruction, improvement, enlargement, extension, and equipping of a rec center, up to $7.6 million. So the public knew when they were voting yes for lost bonds to pay for these things, and to do away with the sunset, they knew exactly what could happen. And when you think that they would actually tax themselves and do away with the sunset, I think they saw, we get, at the time, we were getting 1.7 million a year in lost monies. And I think they thought in the scheme of things, by extending the lost with no sunset, that the 7.6 was a good deal when you consider we're getting almost 2 million a year in perpetuity until another council decides to repeal that. But we were the only city in Carroll County that had a sunset. And people knew exactly what they were voting for, what they would get, and it was approved. So the voters spoke. And I really think that when Brad spoke, Misty and I were on this committee to do the full scope. And then we decided to reduce it down.
Right.
And RDG was so flexible about the materials and very cognizant of the cost. Because they wanted a good product, but they also knew that we didn't want to be frivolous with people's money. And so when he says there's no low-hanging fruit, I don't know if, and I know value engineering, but you know what, for that $11 million jail, do you know what they were able to value engineer down? I went back, I kept all the articles. I have a full folder on my desktop because I was on that committee as a citizen too. And they were only able to shave off $550,000 on an $11 million project from what I read in the paper. Maybe they got more, I don't know, but that's the last that was in the paper. So, Mark, the people have spoken on the lost and our ability to decide to spend up to 7.6 million. That's a done deal. And I think, but I don't know I'm asking Mike this, but PFM was the one that ran all the numbers to see how much, about the whole, it's in our budget book in the debt section, the principal and interest payments, and using lost, where it's actually the payments are about 20% of all the loss that we will take in. And we're giving debt relief 25%. By law, we have to, people approve that. So they're getting 25% debt relief. And then the latest information that she ran for us, it was, the first payment was over 400,000. It's in our debt book. I can't remember the page. And then it got down to carrying it out for 19 years down to 375 would be the lost payment this year. That's only 20% to fund this project as it is now. But we have to come up with 1.3 million more because of the bids. So it'd be 375 for the 19 years of issuance. I don't know, Mike, this is for you. I wonder if it would be worth it to have, just to find out the impact, since we're short 1.3 million, if it would be worth it, get my stuff, look, if it would be worth it, okay, we have lost debt, 5,620,000 here for funding the project. If it would be worth it to ask Suzanne to run some scenarios to throw more debt into lost, we can't do it for Geo, and see if she could come up with adding to the lost but to see if we can do something without impacting our levy. And that may take running it 2 or 4 more years. It's at 19, maybe running it out to 22 years, 25
Can't do that.
years.
You can't do
You
that.
can only go to 20 years.
You
Yeah.
can only do 20,
Yeah.
okay, so you only do 20. Well, see, okay, I have some other ideas
So
for finding money, but yeah, if we can only do 20.
if I can interject, one of the things I was going to ask and maybe frame a question that as we go into future meetings, and this would be related to option 3 that Brad talked about. We have, so obviously the base bid and alternative is 7.935 million. You could eliminate the alternate. That would take 245,000 off and get to 7.69 million. I had a conversation with Baiting, and certainly they did not commit to anything on what could be value engineered, and that's a process on its own. But they did reference the 5% that was able to be achieved with the jail project. Assuming that you could achieve a similar value engineering for this project, that would get it down to $7,305,500. That's assuming 5%. The question, and I think Brad tried to allude to a little bit, is staff and I think RDG and Baiting would be willing to have some conversations to see if that could be achieved. Now, you can't go into the full value engineering, but certainly like the county did, you have some conversations. Is it achievable to get what we need to get to? And if it is, then I think you get a principal and then you go through that process after you sign a contract. But my question is the 7.305 million, is that palatable? If it's not, I think it's an easy answer even this evening to say, no, that's probably still too high of a hill. If it isn't, and this is maybe a little bit of a question for Brad, I think certainly we can have some conversations with Baiting, with RDGs to initially have a discussion here over the next week or two and see if that's going to even be in the realm of reality. And then we can see, but I don't think we want to, go down I don't think we want to waste in particular Baiting's time or even RDG's time if that's a hill too high of a climb. So, and I think then that then on the 14th, at least you're going to have more information. So if that's an area you want to head down to or would even consider, because the other thing you have to remember is we have a 30-day window now that started on the 1st yesterday that we'd have to accept the bids by. So we do have a little bit of a clock, and 2 weeks from now, and that takes time away that we could start having those conversations. So I throw that out as part of the discussion and look for direction on where the council want to go.
If it is palatable and we move forward with that, we're still not, the levy's not changing. The taxes aren't increasing.
Well, it certainly all depends on ultimate funding sources the council uses, but in principle, no, it should not. It would be additional local option sales tax dollars that would have to be used. That's not a property tax increase. Now, the reverse argument could be you can't take those dollars from other projects that now that you could have paid for. So I mean, there's two sides to the discussion there, but in principle, for property taxpayers, using loss won't increase the price of property taxes.
I think we need to know that number of, if we add that dollar figure you're talking about, what's that going to be or in the loss? How much are we gonna be?
And we can run those numbers, but I think again, we got a time issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not palatable even at that level, then I think from a staff perspective, we would like to know that answer quicker so that we're not kind of chasing our tails on a lot of work.
Mike, what was the number again? I couldn't hear everything.
Yeah, no, good question.
I was going to ask the same thing.
So
Carol.
I'll run.
How did he arrive at the 7.3 again?
Yep. So I'll run through all the
take
numbers.
off the alternate.
So you take off the alternate,
Yep.
that gets it to 7.69. And then if you assume 95% of that, get 5% off, you get to $7,305,500. So
7 million what?
$7,305,500. So that's assuming we could get to a point of a 5% reduction in the project.
Then you got to add all these other.
Then you add everything else in, and
on top of
so you're going to be approximately 600,000 over the original cost estimates that we provided, or the funding that we have lined up. So yes, you'd have to look at allocating additional loss would be probably the most likely source. You could look at additional, little bit of hotel motel, but not a lot. It's an option. I guess when you get to that question of value engineering, and Brad alluded to in his comments, there's limited we can go. And I think to really ferret it out, I mean, if it's an option you really want us to look at, we can do that. Waiting to the 14th and saying, yeah, maybe we'll think about it now. That's 2 weeks that we're going to be taking off that time. So I guess my question, at least from staff perspective, because staff always wants to position the council so they can have the information and make decisions. For us to do that, I think we need to know, is that even a palatable option? Because if it's not, fine, we can move forward, but we just need direction.
I think for me, the low hanging fruit would be do away with the multipurpose room. That was kind of the 245,000. That could be easily done. It's not a complex construction project. And if we some year have extra lost or whatever, it would be easy to come up with 245,000. So for me, that makes sense. That came out of the blue kind of late in the planning process. And I think to maintain the quality that we want. I mean, Carroll is known to set the standard for other communities in whatever we do. We raise the bar. That's who we are. And I just really believe that we will be getting a lot of quality, even though we have to swallow this very hard pill because of the situation. We're all in a bad situation. And it doesn't sound like Brad expects it to get better for 24 months. I've got to trust him. He knows projects, he knows the materials. So for me, I think we're getting a lot of the money, even though we're paying $1.3 more. I think it will be something fabulous that we could do for the community, especially kids. If we can, I think we can find a path. I think we can find a way, because this is worth investing in. As Jim Owen said the other night, there are over 130 towns like our size. And how do you set yourself apart? So you bring in contractors to build. You bring in young professionals. You bring in single people who found a good job here because they enjoy the quality of life. Things have changed. I think people appreciate the rec center, and if we can give them even more of a really good thing, I think we're doing a good job for Carroll.
I need to bring up something I did about 2 years ago on my own. I took all our entities that we have, golf course, trails, library, aquatic center, and I did a calculation on cost per usage, per capita on those entities. And like the rec center, we ran a negative balance of $328,000. Well, on the parks and trails, we ran almost $900,000 in the red. So I did, and then let's say, what was the other one? Golf course, we were $180,000, and aquatic center were $94,000. So cost per usage per capita, if you really look at the rec center, it's a bargain compared to cost per usage for the parks, the golf course. I think cost per usage for the golf course was one of the higher ones, but it's used. But the cost per usage on the trails is extremely high compared to the cost per usage per capita in the rec center. I think that's something you need to know. I could do those numbers again someday if you want, but you need to know that the usage on that thing per capita cost is on our lower end of our stuff. It's important to know that.
I think I just need to throw out just a thought or something that has been said. And while the rec center is an important amenity to have, there are needs there that have to be addressed, absolutely have to be addressed. Our HVAC is not going to last much longer. Andy has said it many times. He's patched as much as he can patch. But I think stepping back and kind of looking at several different projects that we've talked about assessing our residents on Adams Street to pay for a roadway, which is something we need and have to have, where the additional stuff at the rec center is an amenity that we choose to want. I think at this point, we have to take into consideration that we're considering taxing or assessing Adams Street residents and then just spending money at the rec instead of reconsidering and spending that money on Adams Street.
That's definitely the number one thing that I have heard since elected.
Well, I would say we have talked about it.
We, help me put this into perspective,
Decided
Mark.
on it.
We don't have, we're talking about, so much spent on a library, so much spent on a streets building, so much projected to spend on a rec center, and yet we don't have enough money to do a street. And frankly, I don't have an answer for people for that. And it's a valid point. It's just that people foresee, what is the return on investment? And to everybody's point here, we want to see that rec. I'm a rec center guy. I've always been a rec center guy. We want to see it. And to your point too, it's at $220 for a senior annual membership, a bargain. It's an understatement. And so it is a valid amenity to have. But I don't, to JJ's point, I have a very difficult time coming up with an answer for a resident when they say, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, but we can't find money to build a street?
Mark, I will say, we can do both. We
can do lots of things
Right.
within, it's just what people are tolerant to pay for.
About housing, we're concerned about maintaining our population. We're concerned about jobs. We're concerned about attracting people here. What attracts people to towns? Amenities like the rec center, the trails, the parks, all those things, or streets. I knew somebody would bring that up. And back in 2014, when we had a council planning session, we were talking about streets and we were talking about the rec center.
Can I just ask, were you talking about assessing homeowners at that time in
Well, we
2014?
haven't decided we're gonna.
I,
do
un- I,
that.
I understand, but that's been a topic that's been brought to the
No,
table.
we weren't at that point. I'm glad you brought that up. No, we weren't at that point, but we were talking about all the different projects coming up. And one of them coming up real fast was a library plan. And so we were talking, and one of the elected officials, I ran across this, and this was the quote on the front page. And we were talking, we can do all these things. We can keep all the balls in the air. We just have to manage the debt, manage the levy, spread things out, be aware of timelines. This is what one elected official said. I don't want to wake up in 40 years and say, we've got nobody living here, but we have nice streets. I will argue amenities like the rec center and all our other recreation and culture. You read studies that Iowa State economists have done on small towns and who's remaining viable and who's attracting people. And what is it? It's safety, we have that. It's also educated people. Like 90% of everybody in Carroll has graduated from high school or better. 26% of our population has a college degree or higher, a BA or higher. Those kinds of educated people work at good jobs, they make good money, they pay their taxes, they're spending money, they have more money to put into the economy. And we need to think differently about what we're able to do. And we need to invest in an amenity that is in the heart of an area. The Grand Park Recreation Area, that is a real hub. That is vibrant. I mean, when you think of Grand Park, you think of Merchants Field. I mean, it's an area full of energy because of all the people coming and going to all the recreational and cultural activities that go on. And you know, people want a high quality of life, as I said. And you know, what's a need for one person is, you know, or a want for one person is not for another. And I've been listening to so many people since we started this discussion, and I told Jean this. You know, for some people, that track is a need. I had someone who's going through heart rehabilitation. I need to walk, but I don't walk there anymore. I walk at the Walmart. Also, I've been told people are starting to, because it's so packed in the gym and the balls and the noise in there, all of that, they want the raised running track. They're letting them walk now in the Kemper Field House. So there is a need for health, not just fun. It isn't always just frivolous. I mean, the rec center keeps people healthy too. I could go on and on. I think it's really time to get this
Mike,
done.
Would you want to talk in the budget? Can't we do both on your proposed budget?
Well, I mean, the proposed budget as presented, it presents a budget where we're not doing street assessments and the road project and does the rec center project, if that's what you're asking.
We can do both.
Correct.
With your proposed budget.
Correct.
No change in the levy.
No, well, there's a change in the levy.
Yeah.
Right.
But
as presented.
as presented.
Change in the funding.
Right.
Yeah.
And how much?
And you had asked a question earlier, and we would need to work with Suzanne to get you the exact numbers, but on an annualized basis, assuming alternate ones rejected, we can get a 5% value savings. It would be about $16,000 a year, $16,075 in principal annually over 20 years. And then we'd have an interest cost on top of that. So that would be the additional loss that we would need every year.
We were at what was it, 370?
Well, it depends on the year.
Well, the first year was
varies.
high,
Yep.
but then it settles out to what, 3? You got there.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Upper 370s is kind of where it was.
370.
375 to 380.
Okay.
I heard tons of people go to the rec. I've heard you say there's a lot of people. What's the number on how many people go to the rec? What's the membership?
About 380 patrons a day, we average.
Yeah, that's a day. I'm talking about total people. So I'm kind of a numbers guy, and I look at it as, what's the percentage of people in Carroll that actually utilize that? How many members do we have? And of those members, who are paying customers
You have
to
about,
rationalize the spending of all this money on a percentage basis of Carroll, Iowa, of where all these tax dollars go, whether it's lost or general fund or anything else?
3,000.
3,000 people.
3,000 people in basically Carroll County.
So that's 3,000 memberships.
800 memberships, 3,000 members.
Okay.
The Wardells have 1 membership but 5
Right.
members.
So I'm just curious how much it is. So you're looking at, what would it be? 30% of Carroll, you were saying, would use the rec center?
It is.
I'm just curious.
Which I think is pretty high percentage.
I guess to add to that, just my professional opinion. Normally, if you have athletic complexes, anything like that, in smaller towns especially, normally that number hovers right around 20% or below.
Okay. So we're asking to spend 20%. Well, let me rephrase this. We're asking 20% that use it want to spend all of that money. So you got 80% of the community that's not using it, helping pay for this big ticket item, where we've gone through and spent money on big ticket items in the last year.
Remember, Tom, too, the lost money, that's discretionary spending.
And that's fine. It's not going anywhere. It's still sitting in an account, right? Is that the way I understand that? That the money is sitting there? Or how does that work?
No, we're borrowing future money.
Future money to borrow for it, to create another loan, which I get. But we talk about return on investment. So what do we annually lose on the rec center?
I just said that. What was it?
300,000.
328,000. So I can see where you're going with, but I don't golf.
Yeah.
But, so
I
there's
get
a
it.
percentage of me, I don't know what percentage of people in town golf, but I see where you're going with what you're saying, but,
About 400 memberships out at the golf course.
And I understand it's a great draw for Carroll. We've got a rec center. A lot of communities don't have them, but you say it's important to draw businesses here. And I've kind of said this before in the past that, what businesses have come in the last 10 years. Where are we at in 10 years for the rec center being such a draw that it brings businesses to help create the revenue that we need, to have the employers come in and say, here, I want to hire 100 more people. And then
I might be mistaken, but Pella came because of the rec center.
yeah, that was back
It
in
was more than 10 years ago, but-
1983.
but they
So,
did.
yeah.
Um,
I'm just talking
Yes.
right now at this time.
But didn't you say 30% of ours is?
We're about 30%
30%.
countywide.
And I would say that doesn't count admissions to different swim meets. That doesn't count for basketball tournaments, anything like that.
theater.
Theater utilization as well.
Yeah, you have a lot of people. And to be fair, we do have those people come in, but when those people get charged going to the swim meet, the swim clubs have that money and things like that. But yeah, we used to be about 4,000, but when other places became apparent in town, we've lost to those other places out east and west. But again, you got to go back. What we're talking about is fixing up a 40-year-old building. You want to keep the rec center.
Yeah.
I think everyone does.
Everyone does. There's no doubt about that.
And these two items that we're talking about, a little bit more, the locker rooms and the HVAC units. You're gonna have showers that don't work. You're gonna fix. So here's a project we can get behind, jump on, get it done, get these amenities that we need fixed. And generally, the last thing, our rec center budget, our memberships, and what we bring in for revenue, paid for services and commodities and our personnel. It's the capital items that we lose, the 300,000, some of those bigger numbers.
The HVAC, if it was in the budget, I wouldn't fix
And
it.
the HVAC, we're gonna gain some money each year. We're gonna save money when we get that done. Just the cost,
I was
rebates.
just curious about the numbers, how many people actually utilize.
Can I just interject really quick? Because Brad needs to jump off from RDG. Does anyone have any questions for Brad? And then on the HVAC, I just want to interject. The HVAC, we have in the budget 307,000. Is that correct? The HVAC component in this project is this is based on bid. Is $1,001,670.
So that's what it would cost to replace.
Yes. So we do not have, yep. And so that's the bid number. The 307,000 was us purely guessing what it would cost and start saving dollars aside.
Some of that was keeping units upstairs, gutting the inside out, and replacing, the guts of the units was what we were.
The other thing with this project is I think originally when we were looking at replacing outside of scope of a bigger project, we were replacing with electric coil heat, which is in there today. No one heats their house with electric coil heat. And so this is actually going to gas, which is way more efficient. And that's where the energy savings will come in short order. So I think a lot of these orders of magnitude, now that we have bid numbers, that's one thing that we can start, honing in on is we just have better data now. It was expensive to get to this point.
When RDG shot us some numbers when they did the original design, they built in, and these numbers aren't relevant anymore based on the bid and everything, but an annual inflation rate of 5%, who knows what it is now. But they broke it down, full rec center project, locker rooms only, gym, and I'm sure it's much more now based on Batings numbers, but they projected that if we only did the locker rooms only in 2020, that it would be $2,069,145. So if we only do the locker rooms, it's got to be more now, based on debating. If we only did the gym, 2023, the gym alone would be $5.6 million in 2020 dollars. So that's why I'm saying, it's in here, it's in the information they gave us a while back. You see what I mean about, we have some known numbers now that I think would be smart to work with.
Did we talk about the other day how Lost is kind of like on the fence right now? Like, we're not sure what the future of Lost holds as far as like with the state.
So there is a bill, Senate Study Bill 3074, I believe is the number. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the bill number. That is the comprehensive tax bill that's in the Senate right now. So there's the House bill on comprehensive tax reform. There's the governor's proposal, and then there's the Senate proposal. The House proposal only looks at individual income tax. The governor is individual income tax and corporate tax. The Senate, individual, corporate, and does a lot more. One of the areas is looking at lost, local option sales tax, and making changes to that. And I think initially before the bill came out, the concern was the legislature was going to get rid of local option sales tax. The bill is out now. Local option sales tax is not being removed. What's proposed in the Senate bill is to move local option sales tax, eliminates local option sales tax, makes it the state general sales tax. Will increase that by a penny. That triggers what's called I Will, which is the Iowa constitutional amendment that was done in 2010 on soil conservation, water quality initiatives. And that's a 3/8 cent then that will go to that. Now, some of that funds there'll be reallocation. So it's not a full 3/8 in reality in new funding for I Will initiatives. They're also making changes in the Senate bill proposed, they'll make changes to some of the sales tax areas. So in some areas where they don't collect sales tax, they'll start collecting sales tax. It's mainly in some of your areas of computer services. So stuff like food, vehicle won't be impacted by it, but it's very targeted areas. So that is occurring in that. So I think right now the position and what I've relayed to our elected officials is, I think from the city's perspective, we can support it. And I think there's always a concern, the legislature could take away these various areas like local option sales tax. And I think that's always a concern. Local option sales tax is a statutory thing. It's not a constitutional amendment. So even if we had local option sales tax this year, they could get rid of it next year. One of the things in this bill with the Senate is they really did a lot of things to protect cities, make sure they remain whole. And I think even if you issue debt against it, local option sales tax, and they make a change, my perspective is the legislature is going to have to hold those communities harmless and continue to allow those. I'm giving you too big of an explanation, but long story short, I think initially we had less concern with the bill that's out there now. There was a Carroll specific concern with the bill. We worked with Senator Williams and Senator Schultz, and through that, the chair of the Ways and Means Committee has agreed, and actually at the subcommittee meeting was that yesterday?
Yesterday, 4.
Actually made reference to our issue, didn't call our city out by name, but our issue. And that said that would get corrected in the legislation. So I don't have concern at this point. But good question, because that
It's important.
should weigh.
I'm as your mayor, I am doing a horrible job of keeping these meetings moving on a timely manner. And I'm,
That's a good one.
He's consistent, right? That's the headline. He's consistent.
That's good.
I've got a little bit of gas left in the tank if we want to do breakfast.
We ordered it already.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, what I'm hearing here is not a lot of consensus. I think part of my job is to try and bring consensus. I'm still trying to master a lot of things, and that one's I'm falling short on as well. But option number 4 is off the table. Put project on hold. Scrap it. Kill it. Everybody's in agreement with that. No one's interested in saying, we're done with this. Am I hearing that? Nobody wants to say that, right? Okay. So we're down to finding a way to scrape up another $1.3 million of this.
Well, not necessarily that high, but It could be that.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. I'll quit interrupting.
No, that's all right. That's all right. The next was, redesign and rebid, and maybe do a partial project. Maybe do the locker rooms and the HVAC. The two most pressing needs. I know they're not sexy in terms of amenities and what people are saying that they want. I get that, but I'm just saying, I think we can agree those are the most pressing needs. Okay. The next thing would be, to do Mike's hybrid approach to cut off the alternate and try to, I call it re-engineer, but it's value engineer, another 5%, which would get it to 7.3. His question is that palatable? And again, I'm not looking for anybody to make a decision tonight, but that's what lies before us, whether it be another special meeting or whether we do this on February 14th. But sooner or later, we all need to go home and retire for the evening. And I think we're just kind of rehashing the same old thoughts, and that at least I, for one, haven't heard a whole lot of arguments that I haven't heard before. You asked a very valid question just now. I mean, there's no chance of this lost going away. That's certain. But if there's any more valid, questions need to be asked tonight, let's do that before we, adjourn. And if so, can I bring those forth at this time? Because that was a very, it was a good question. No one's going to pull the rug out on us, are they?
I just appreciate all the good dialogue.
Thank you. I do too.
It's important that that's what we do.
Yep, I do too. Okay. Well, I think that brings it to a close, at least for now. Does everybody agree? Or is there anything else? Points made, and let's do some homework and let's plan for Monday, February 14th to make a decision on this. Mike?
But what I would say is we need to meet before then, and maybe not necessarily on this issue. I mean, it could be this issue too, but we need to, I think we have some budget issues we need to deal with.
Which we didn't get to.
And on February 14th, we need to staff needs to go present resolutions to move the budget forward.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be we plan to meet, if it works in everyone's schedule, on February 7th.
Yeah, that's Monday.
That's Monday.
Yeah, next Monday. And if we have to, and we don't finish on the 7th, we're going to meet on the 9th. And if we don't finish on the 9th, we'll meet on the 11th. And if we don't finish on the 11th, we're going to meet all day on the 12th.
Yeah.
And we'll,
what you're telling me is 9 o'clock might be early, is what you're trying to say.
well, I mean, and I think the greatest concern I have right now is the 14th is a hard date.
Yeah.
We have to be in a position we are setting our max levy.
That's when you're gonna set the public hearing for the max levy.
Yeah, right.
That's the first step of the process.
Yeah,
right.
And so we have to have numbers.
Yeah.
And I sense from some of the conversations that maybe we want to look at making amendments to the budget yet. And so if we're going to make amendments to the budget, the 14th, we need to have those prepared by.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and reality is I'm probably a little, you certainly can lower the budget later, the 14th and then the 28th, we have public hearings and we can amend the budget and it can go lower, but it can't go up. But generally we have the budget wrapped up at that point. And so, yeah, I can be done now.
Okay. Well, let's tentatively plan for next Monday, barring any unforeseen calamities or.
And to follow our process, I mean, let me know. If someone has an issue, if you would just communicate early tomorrow morning with me.
Right.
Because we'll publish notice tomorrow afternoon like we normally do on Thursdays.
Yeah.
So if I don't hear anything probably by 11 o'clock tomorrow. I'll assume it works for everyone and we'll go forward.
And you're saying 5:15?
Yep, it'd be 5:15.
Okay.
We'll lock the doors. No one gets out. Be like the papal smoke will go up when we're done.
Okay.
What color of smoke is?
You're right, there is a color.
Like the Pope or something.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Isn't it
right.
white?
White.
White,
I'm seeking a motion to adjourn. Did someone move
I'll
second.
and second?
Tom?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Roll call, Tom?
Yes.
Misty? Yes. JJ? Yes. Laverne?
Darn right, yes.
Kyle? Carol? All right, we're adjourned.